101. Pedaling. Inside the underground passage. The two figures are moving forward at a rapid pace. Nick Fury's face was solemn and hurried, and the current situation was completely beyond his expectations. The S.H.I.E.L.D. director, who has experienced many ups and downs, after a brief panic, touched the BB machine left by Captain Marvel in his pocket, and still regained some sanity. He thought of the person standing behind him. I'm facing Chen Tian now, and I'm not completely in a desperate situation where I can't get out of it. 35. Nick Fury took a deep breath, adjusted his mood, and began to calculate in his heart whether it was time to use the last resort against Chen Tian. Definitely. At present, the most important thing is to retreat from Chen Tian's subordinates who are pressing step by step, so that there is room to talk more. Rumble. Right in Nick Fury's thoughts wandered. The underground passage, which had just recovered calm for a while, suddenly trembled violently again. Next second, I saw a figure, directly penetrating the ground of more than 10 meters, and the ceiling of the passage. From the sky, stood Nick. In front of Fury. Chen Tian. Seeing that shadow, his eyes cast a terrifying red light. Nick Fury immediately recognized the identity of the other party, and felt the murderous intent projected in the other party's eyes. Rao was a little frightened and took 2 steps back. However, Nick Fury is not a complete gaffe. After all, he is also the world's top super agent. He knew that the more he faced an urgent situation, the more he had to try to remain calm in order to have a chance to reverse the situation. Thoughts are like electricity. Syllable. Nick Fury's hand was already on the gun around his waist. Nick Fury, long time no see. Chen Tian on the opposite side, with an indifferent expression and anger brewing in his eyes, said in a deep voice, I think this is the last time we meet. Between talks. He took 25 or 50 steps forward. I can only blame you for treating my previous words as a joke. Chen. Nick. The more nervous Fury was, the calmer he became, and then frowned and said coldly, I'm sorry for all the actions I did before. 39. But there can only be one higher race in the world, and as long as this number is exceeded, everything will fall into a war against each other. He slowly pulled out the gun at his waist. Throughout history, in this world of the jungle, only truly powerful races can survive. Even with the most despicable means. However. Roar. His voice had just fallen. I only felt that a flower in front of him, a stream of air with endless agitated wind, violently slapped on his face. Meanwhile, the hand that has always been white as jade, with well-defined knuckles, has been pinched on Nick Fury's neck. B. Nick Fury let go of the gun in his hand, grabbed Chen Tian's arm with both hands, and barely spoke. He looked at the young man in front of him, his eyes flowing with red luster and full of cold meaning. I only felt a strong feeling of suffocation that filled my chest. Let go. Then. Follow Nick. The S.H.I.E.L.D. agent behind Fury, although nervous, reacted quickly and pulled out a gun and pointed it at Chen Tian. Then he whispered. Stepping on and pedaling one. Meanwhile. On the other side of the passage was waiting to receive Nick Fury's S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, after hearing Chen Tian's movement crashing into the passage, also rushed towards the side. Give up resistance, or we'll shoot. These agents meet Chen Tian and Nick. After Fury choked the scene, he also raised the gun without hesitation. Quiet. Chen Tian, who was pointed at by more than a dozen guns, did not return his head, and did not even waver in his eyes for half a minute. Advertisement. With his current strength, there is no need to take these people seriously. Buzz one by one. As his voice exited, Invisible psychic fluctuations spread out along the air. Next second, the originally excited soldiers on both sides of the passage immediately quieted down. Then, he stood up straight and put back all the guns in his hand. Chen Tian glanced at these people, and then said, "Go Charles, take it out and arrange it to a place where it is absolutely safe. You all go and guard him." The voice fell. Without saying a word, the S.H.I.E.L.D agents, who had received mind control, all walked in unison and trotted towards Charles's location. R. Nick. Fury looked at this scene, and the fear and despair that had been suppressed by him in his heart surged up uncontrollably again. In an instant, he felt that his whole body was submerged, and every corner was extremely cold. Nick. Fury knew that according to the combat power of SHIELD present, Chen Tian could not be handled at all. And now, he is also controlled by the other party. If nothing else, Nick. Fury feels that he is already fierce today. Thinking of this, he directly gave up all resistance, let Chen Tian grab his neck, and slowly raised his eyes. Nick. Fury calmly met Chen Tian's gaze. But his gaze slowly changed from endless tension to calm. "I can feel that you seem to have a lot of emotions in your heart." Chen Tian looked at each other and slowly spoke coldly, "But in these emotions, there is fear, but not for me, but for death. There are regrets, but still not for me, but regrets that I should have been fully prepared." Saying this, he shook his head disdainfully and smiled. "Nick. Fury, you're really dead. It seems that you, the guy, have never felt that dealing with me has no problem with the mutant behind me. The voice is over." Nick opposite. Fury sneered and raised his eyebrows. "You see, I can't even hide my thoughts in front of you. That's why you exist like this. I don't think you should stay in the world. Otherwise, sooner or later, the world will be destroyed in the hands of mutant." 99. When Chen Tian heard his words, his face became more and more gloomy, "But you should also see clearly by now, who is the most powerful race on Earth. And until then, you never figured it out." Year. When he finished these words, he did not hurry to finish them. In response to Chen Tian, it was Nick. Fury laughed disdainfully. Although this guy's neck is now pinched by Chen Tian, he still laughed twice reluctantly. "The strongest." The corners of Nick Fury's mouth slowly hooked. "I admit, if it's just about the ability to hurt others, you mutant is much better than ordinary people. But you beings, like children with nuclear weapons in their hands, could bring danger to the world at any time." 99. Saying this, the smile on the corner of his mouth became thicker. "As far as I know, even without us, mutant is almost extinct." 9. You. Nick. Fury's eyes were bloodshot because of some lack of oxygen, but he still pretended to look Chen Mengting up and down with ease. "You seem to be the last naturally born mutant on Earth, right?" When he said this, his words stopped abruptly. However, what was not said is also obvious. That is, since you said that mutant is the most powerful race on the entire planet, why is it that now, no new natural mutant has been born? Doesn't that mean that mutant is obsolete from the world? Very good, yours is the hardest." The expression on Chen Tian's face became more and more ugly, and he also knew that Nick Fury is a completely radical guy. The exchange of words is completely meaningless. In that case, then from the action, shatter his soul, and then wipe out his whole person. Rumble. The next moment, Chen Tian took Nick directly. Fury directly slammed through the ceiling and deep layers of underground, constantly accelerating and leaping into the depths. "Chen Tian, no matter what you do, you can't shake my faith." Nick Fury felt the weightlessness he felt when telling flight, but suddenly laughed loudly. Advertisement. "You wait, 35. Chen Tian glanced at the other party coldly. The next moment. Roar. He suddenly accelerated, and his entire figure was above the sky, turning into an afterimage that was indistinguishable to ordinary people's naked eyes, erupting with terrifying speed. The figure kept moving forward, breaking through one sound barrier after another. The sharp and piercing sonic boom sound continued to generate from the sky, spreading out and falling to the ears of everyone on the ground. Roar. Chen Tian. Ha ha. Nick. Fury felt a speed he had never reached in his life and laughed out loud. He felt that Chen Tian was already angry at the moment. But since Mutant launched a crisis that could threaten the entire world, Nick. Fury was so unwilling to trust Mutant from the bottom of his heart. Roar. And while he shouted those few words, Chen Tian had already taken him across countless distances from New York to Waldo. The rapid flight all the way, in the sky, created a terrifying sound explosion. At the same time, it also brought countless strong winds, gathering the thick dark clouds in the sky that were about to disperse again. Boom! In the clouds on the sky, a thick thunder split out again, illuminating the entire city below. Meanwhile, the wind that had just stopped also began to roar again. Waldo. People who have already returned to calm and can restore stability. Attracted by the movement in the sky, he was suddenly filled with panic again. Damn! Here it is again. Is there really going to be some kind of doom that befalls us? Look! Pointing to the sky, Chen Tian's figure shouted, that terrifying figure is back. 5. Shit, I feel my body start to tremble. What kind of existence is that person? Not only can you fly, but it can also make the world look like this. Is he really not a mythical god? Time. All kinds of shock sounds came from all corners of Huaju. 0 on the other side. At the foot of the tricurved wing building. Chen Tian? The hill agent who had just returned naturally noticed Chen Tian's figure. At the same time, I also saw Nick in the other party's hand. Fury. Damn, something really happened. She immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. A completely out of control mutant, not something they can control. You guys quickly contact Tony. Stark handles this. Hill immediately gave orders to his opponents. Meanwhile, the rest of the SHIELD, when Chen Tian last arrived at the tricurved wing building, hundreds of contingent members had already gathered. Now I see him returning. The captain in charge of commanding the contingent, seeing this scene, gave the order with a solemn expression, prepare for action. Yes. When all the members of the contingent heard this, they immediately took out their weapons and went into a state of readiness for battle. Start walking towards the top floor of the tricurved wing building. Prepare to encircle and suppress Chen Tian. The other side. Under the cover of dark clouds. Roar. Advertisement. Chen Tian has taken Nick with him. Fury landed on top of the tricurved wing building. Nick. Fury, take a good look, look at the city in front of you, look at the ant-like race that inhabits the buildings. He spoke slowly. At the same time, he carried the ladder and handed it forward, so that his whole person was suspended at the highest place of the 3 curved wing building. The body sways constantly with the wind blowing high in the air. No, Chen Tian, you can't kill me. Nick. Fury felt the night breeze blowing, bringing the icy cold, looking down at the sky at an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, and the fear of death in his heart became deeper and deeper. I couldn't help but say, I'm telling you, my identity is not just as simple as S.H.I.E.L.D. director. You mean, the Skrulls will help you? Chen Tian laughed coldly when he heard this. He naturally knew what the real confidence in the other party's heart was. And before he was ready to start, Chen Tian had already made all the preparations. Did you hack into my brain? Nick. Fury didn't expect Chen Tian to actually know the Skrull, and his eyes widened. I don't have to do that at all. Chen Tian's expression was already calm, but the red light in his eyes gradually became stronger. At this moment, he felt that thanks to Hulk's bloodline, with his anger, the power in his body was also climbing constantly. Moreover, the Skrulls in your mouth cannot save you, and neither can they save this poor race. He spoke coldly. The voice just fell. Roar. A golden red figure in the sky, leaning on the thrusters on his hands and feet, with a tail flame, galloped towards Chen Tian. Exactly Iron Man. Chen, put down Nick. Fury. 39. Tony. Stark changed his voice and spoke with an electric current mechanical voice coming out from under the mask. Chen Tian didn't speak when he heard this, but just shook his head. In the Iron Man armor in front of him, it was immediately reported that Tony. Stark's eager voice, Chen, I know Nick. Fury has targeted you mutant. 5. But countering violence with violence is never the best way to solve the problem. If you really kill him, it will only aggravate the conflict between the two races. 3.0. Chen Tian heard the other party's statement and did not rush to reply. Instead, it slowly tightened the buckle at Nick. 5 fingers around Fury's neck. The latter's already hideous expression became more and more ugly, and his hands and feet unconsciously began to struggle. Subsequently, Chen Tian slowly retorted, you seem to have said that you are not a sociologist and do not understand interracial hatred. 99. Me. If you really want to talk peace, it's more than just a battlesuit. 35. Thousands of miles away, Tony in New York City. Stark, listening to the sound coming from the stereo in front of him. I couldn't help but be surprised for a moment, and then explained, the reason why I didn't go directly was because I was worried about my safety. After speaking, he paused for a moment and continued to speak, Chen, I still feel that the matter cannot be solved by such an extreme way, so I should sit down and talk about it. The other side. The top of the tricurved wing building. Chen Tian heard Tony. Stark's voice came from the armor. Smiled softly, some people feel like wolves, but they are angry for acting like sheep. I wasn't going to do that definitely. As the words progressed, the murderous intent on Chen Tian's body became more and more intense. But I learned a painful lesson from you, and now I understand a little. You are all wolves, it's a pity that you are too arrogant. When the words fell, his other hand slowly put on Nick. Above Fury's head, the latter could no longer make a sound, and could only struggle even more frantically. Damn. Tony. Stark immediately realized that the situation was wrong, his voice was a little frightened, urged the propulsion device, and was ready to go up and forcibly save people. However, next second, Chen Tian's 5 fingers suddenly tightened. Boom. Nick. Fury's skull directly burst into slag, and blood splashed everywhere. 102. Damn. In a mansion in Los Angeles. Tony. Stark sees the picture, and Chen Tian puts his hand on Nick. When Fury was on top of his head, he immediately reacted wrongly. Immediately control the Iron Man warframe to rush forward. It's a pity it's too late. Chen Tian buckled on Nick. The 5 fingers on Fury's skull instantly gathered together without hesitation. With his current strength, even crushing steel is no more than easy, let alone a human head. Nick, who was lifted to the back of his neck. Fury, feeling the thick shadow of death enveloping him, hissed in despair. Even though he is in charge of SHIELD on weekdays, which can be called a behemoth. There are even Skrull people behind him as a backing. But at the moment, facing Chen Tian alone, he is a toddler who has no strength at all, without even a trace of resistance. The next moment. Boom. Nick. Fury's head was easily twisted and lost its shape under Chen Tian's hands, and it exploded. Like a watermelon that has been easily smashed, it is torn apart. Splashes of blood spread in the howling wind of roar at the top of the three curved wing building. Once the super agent on Earth, the king of agents in the eyes of countless agents, is now dead. Chen. What did you do? You killed Nick. Fury. Tony. Stark looked at the scene in front of him through the camera on the battle armor and frowned suddenly. No way, now he has a partnership with Shield. He didn't know the truth, but he only felt that Chen Tian's move was too much. Immediately controlling the Iron Man battle suit raised his hand, and the energy cannon in his palm began to gather energy. Roar. The next moment. Tony across the screen. Stark only felt that in the screen picture, Chen Tian's figure, which was still some distance away, suddenly flickered. Immediately, the image of the Iron Man battle suit suddenly went dark. Meanwhile. Boom. The Hill agent, who was just about to enter the three curved wing building, suddenly heard a muffled sound from the ground behind him. She looked back, and her face immediately changed, and she couldn't help but let out a startled roar, Nick. Fury. I saw that at the door of the three curved wing building, there was already more than 03 headless corpse. Moreover, after an acceleration of more than 1,000 meters, the corpse directly fell into a blur of blood and shape when it just touched the ground. The internal organs were broken into flesh and bones, mixed into a puddle and splattered half a bloody flower on the ground. The other half is completely painted on the glass doors at the front of the building. Actually, just look at the corpse. No one can recognize its identity before his death. However, the Hill agent has a super observation ability and recognizes clothing mixed in mints. Plus, before seeing Chen Tianwolnik, Fury took it to the top floor of the tricurved wing building, and then he made his final decision. What, that's the chief. The other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents beside Hill heard her shocked roar, and their already ugly expressions became even more ugly after seeing the corpse. Equally startled, Roar ran towards the door. Hill looked at Nick, who had fallen into meat sauce and was flowing freely on the ground. Fury, I can't come to my senses. The people I saw this morning have become like this in a blink of an eye, and the impact on people is indescribable. Even if she and the other party disagree on many things. But that doesn't mean Hill can sit idly by and watch Nick Fury's death. Sir, we can't contact the chief, now please give an order whether to encircle and suppress the mutant at the top. We're in place at the moment, just 2 stories away from the top floor. Then. In Hill's communications headset, the voice of the head of the S.H.I.E.L.D. contingent was heard. The other party's tone was very solemn. It seems that there are still some doubts about whether he can successfully encircle and suppress Chen Tian. Nope. Get out of here, the farther away from that mutant, the better. 35. Don't provoke him yet. 35. Advertisement. Hill looked at Nick Fury, quickly gave his own command. Then he took a deep breath and tried to suppress the pounding heart in his chest. Now, the example of the latter daring to provoke Chen Tian is bloody in front of him. There can be no more mistakes of the past. She thought to herself. Now Chen Tian's strength has reached an outrageous point, completely exceeding the current limit that S.H.I.E.L.D. can face. If he rashly starts, I am afraid that the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. will be destroyed. And Hill glanced up at the still cloudy, lightning and thundering sky. If Chen Tian really wants to do it, I am afraid that the surrounding cities will definitely be affected. She thought about it, swallowing a mouthful of spit with difficulty, and the awe of the other party in her heart became more and more intense. Now the only ones who can help S.H.I.E.L.D. face the existence of Chen Tian are probably the Skrulls, and Nick Fury mentioned the first Avenger Captain Marvel before his death. It's a pity that no matter which side is on Earth now, to get their help, they must be given a certain amount of time before they can come to Earth. In other words, On such an earth, S.H.I.E.L.D cannot fight Chen Tian on its own. Therefore, the best action now is not to resist, and then cooperate with Chen Tian as much as possible. Roar. Hill was still thinking about it. Then I heard a sound of breaking the air overhead. Look up again. But she saw Chen Tian, who fell from the sky and had a calm face, fall in front of her. Meantime, Hill also noticed that the teenager in front of him was actually carrying Iron Man's scrapped battlesuit. Meanwhile, inside the Stark building, Tony Stark faced the screen in front of him that had lost its signal source, and his face was quite ugly. His most proud battlesuit, under Chen Tian's hands, could not survive even a moment. Damn it! He scolded angrily, and smashed out the cup with most of the black liquid in his hand, smashing a glass cabinet not far away. Sir, control your emotions, otherwise it will affect your health. Then, in the impression in front of him, the artificial intelligence butler J.A.R.V.I.S, reminded loudly at the right time. And Tony. When Stark heard the other party's words, the expression on his face suddenly became more and more irritable. S.H.I.E.L.D side. Chen Tian had just landed in front of the three-curved wing building. Immediately, dozens of heavily armed contingent soldiers walked up vigilantly. Eyes stared at him. But Chen Tian simply ignored them. He looked at Hill in front of him with a tangled expression. You want Captain Marvel to come over, I don't care. It's better to call all the Skrulls over, so that there is no trouble when the time comes to separate them. When Hill agent heard this, politely reacted Chen Tian spied his mind. You. She hesitated for a moment and confessed directly, I did have the idea you just mentioned. However, since you can read my mind, then you should also understand that in my thoughts now, I am willing to fully cooperate with you. 5. It can only be said that Hill deserves to be in Nick. After Fury, he can take over the characters of SHIELD. Even in such a quiet situation, facing Chen Tian, she could still control her emotions and speak without changing her face. Then, Chen Tian. Logan walked out of the basement with Laura and the others. He just hit roar. The two little girls beside him immediately couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts, and ran towards him with a frightened face full of grievances. Chen Tian put his arm around two pale, shivering little girls with a gentle smile on his face. Don't worry, it's okay, the trouble has been solved by me. Feeling the cold bodies of the two, he softly spoke to soothe. I knew you were okay, so I wasn't afraid. Laura pouted and said a little stubbornly. Advertisement. As for Wanda, he still couldn't hold back the tears in his eyes, and said tearfully, Chen, it's good to see that you are not injured. Ah, it's okay. 35. Pete, who was not far away, saw Chen Tian's appearance, and was also relieved and sat directly on the ground. Even Logan quietly relaxed. Subsequently, Chen Tian calmed the two girls a few more words until their emotions were more stable. Glanced at Nick on the ground. Fury turned his gaze to Hill again. Seeing this, Wanda and Laura obediently let go of their hands and stood behind Chen Tian. He asked for it. Chen Tian gestured to Nick, who was flowing on the ground. Fury, and I said that if you provoke me, I'll settle the account with the whole SHIELD. What? Hill heard the other party's words, and then felt the other party's cold eyes. Even though she had maintained a calm expression before, she couldn't help but take 2 steps back. After all, what came out of Chen Tian's mouth was indeed true. He had warned before. So Hill was very worried that Chen Tian would directly kill him. Don't worry, I'm not a demon who can only kill. 35. However, this does not mean that S.H.I.E.L.D can easily skip this without paying any price. Chen Tian saw through the other party's thoughts, and the corners of his mouth lifted lightly. Now you have a chance to atone for your sins, but there is only one chance, and if something goes wrong in the middle, or if someone resists, the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. will only have a dead end. He said softly, a smile between his eyebrows. What do you want us to do? As long as S.H.I.E.L.D. can withstand it, then I don't think anyone will have any opinion. Hearing this, Hill knew that he might be able to avoid the end of destruction, and took a deep breath and asked solemnly. When Chen Tian spoke, his tone was relaxed, even easygoing. But she knew that she had to come up with a 12-point attitude to face it seriously. You have 20 minutes to gather all the scientists involved in the Super Soldier program, and if it doesn't go well for the slightest time, everything will end here. Chen Tian raised his eyebrows and smiled easily. He still didn't give up on his previous plan. Moreover, after seeing the elderly Wolverin and Charles become more and more weak, Chen Tian believes that it is necessary to help these two elderly people who have been together for a long time and help them return to their original peak. Good. When Hill Agent heard this, he couldn't think of the purpose of Chen Tian's request. But the half of his next words were like a majestic mountain, directly pressing on her heart. She had to give orders to SHIELD. So Nick. After Fury's death, Hill became the most powerful person. The other side. Chen Tian turned around again and touched Wanda and Laura's heads, his palms radiating a warm feeling. The two girls immediately felt that their previous restless mood was much relieved. Definitely. Chen Tian does not use any psychic ability. Simply because he was around at the moment, Wanda and Laura felt at ease. Chen. Sorry, I couldn't hold everyone. The expression on Logan's face looked a little lost, and there were mixed feelings in Chen Tian's eyes. If you encounter a problem, you still have to let Chen Tian solve it. Logan, actually, my problem is that I ignored Nick Fury's bias. Chen Tian said helplessly. No, in fact, this period of time has also made me understand that in fact, I also want a normal life. It's really nice to be able to walk in the sun. Logan's face was still lost, but I don't have the ability to guard it. Chen Tian narrowed his eyes when he heard this, and then said with a smile, Wolverine, don't do this, I think I can restore your ability next. 99. Can this kind of thing really be done? Logan was a little confused. It's related to what I just asked Hill to do, you'll know then. Chen Tian did not directly break it, intending to surprise Logan. Good. Logan didn't ask more, just focused his head, and he naturally wanted to believe the teenager's words. At the same time, I have begun to look forward to the scene when my ability is restored. Advertisement. Then Logan asked, are you really going to let S.H.I.E.L.D. go? What do you say? 99. When Chen Tian heard this, the corners of his mouth outlined a smile. Promise no longer fights against S.H.I.E.L.D. just to stabilize Hill. The final result is not up to him. 550 The current S.H.I.E.L.D. has no ability to deal with itself, and the only person to worry about is the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One in the Himalayas. Definitely Chen Tian also hopes to make the other party walk on his own. After all, you can also directly copy the magic ability, and it is even possible to copy the magic ability of the Ancient One Magician. Become the Supreme Sorcerer Supreme. Chen. After hearing Chen Tian's promise to Logan, Wanda on the side also raised his head and looked at each other without talking. A pair of large sapphire-like eyes kept flickering. Chen Tian saw what the other party was thinking, but didn't say much, just reached out and touched the girl's head. Then he said, by the way, I'll pick up Charles. The voice fell. Chen Tian's body flashed and blurred. Roar. Logan and the others only felt that as soon as they saw a flower, a strong wind came towards them. When coming back to your senses, only to find that Chen Tian still seemed to be standing in place, not moving. However, there is more Charles in a wheelchair in front of him. At his current speed, it would only take a split second to arrive in New York from Waldeck. The same goes for coming back. However, considering that Charles's body is too weak. When Chen Tian brought it back, he used dimensional teleportation. This. Logan and several people looked at the scene in front of them, and their eyes suddenly widened, not understanding what was happening. Wasn't Charles taken to the Xavier Genius Academy by S.H.I.E.L.D? Or did I guess wrong? Logan even doubted his previous thoughts. Chen Tian smiled and didn't explain much, but just said, "My current speed is a little bit faster." This statement came out. Several people on the other side were amazed. "Chen, it's amazing." Laura looked up, her eyes twinkling. Wanda also looked at Chen Tian with adoration. As for Pete's eyes, they were full of envy. After experiencing so many things, in addition to the brutality of Chen Tian's methods, he also has an extremely strong emotion towards the other party in his heart. That is to envy Chen Tian for having such a powerful strength. Then, Charles in the wheelchair also woke up slowly. Seeing Logan in front of him, he muttered in a low voice. "Logan, I seem to have had a dream in which you became young again." Meanwhile, Himalayas. The sky was gloomy, with thick dark clouds, dense snowflakes splashing, and a cold wind roar howling. In the biting temperature, the seemingly endless wind roar whistled and swept the snow. Inside one of the rooms in Camartage, isolated by a thick curtain of snow, Ancient One magician sat cross-kneeled with his eyes closed, floating in mid-air. It is surrounded by mysterious patterns that flow with a magical luster. Suddenly, she sensed the timeline she was guarding, there was a fluctuation, and the presence of Chen Tian emerged. "Chen Tian, you are such an uncertain factor." 103. Meanwhile, America's Air Force Command. Countless busy figures are nervously paying attention to the screen in front of them. These people are all observers of the Air Force, and as the Air Force Combat Readiness Reserve, they constantly monitor changes in the climate, magnetic field, and other factors that affect air combat in various parts of the world. One of the technicians, who was paying attention to the weather in Hwaju, changed his face abruptly, and then nervously connected to Colonel Rhodes' communication device. "Colonel, the overall magnetic field over Hwaju has changed, and at the same time there has been an extremely abnormal climate change, along with the weather in the entire large state." 359. The technician felt that this matter was very serious, and reported quickly and clearly, also, the entire S.H.I.E.L.D signal source is blocked. Nick Fury has been in contact with an extremely powerful mutant some time ago, it can't be a rollover. Colonel Rhodes, as a high-ranking figure in the military, has a lot of information, and the moment he heard the report, he immediately realized that there was mutant's ability, which affected everything. "Okay, I see." He immediately frowned. "The situation seems to be very urgent, report it directly to the Ministry of Defense and let them deal with it." 35. "Colonel, there is news from the Ministry of Defense, a crowd has called the police, they have already learned of the situation." The technician immediately replied, "It's just that they said that this matter is not within their scope of handling." How can such a thing not be under the control of the Ministry of Defense? The expression on Colonel Rhodes' face became ugly when he heard this, and he directly chose General Ross, who connected to the northern military base. "Rose, it's me." On the young Rhodes' face, the expression was not good looking. "What's the matter?" In the Hulk incident before, the voice of General Ross, who had a relationship with Chen Tian, came out of the earpiece. After hearing the other party's voice, Rhodes quickly told Ross the information they had. "Well, the situation you mentioned does have a wide impact." General Ross was silent for a moment. He then continued, "Nick Fury had previously requested assistance from the Security Council, but we couldn't contact him at all. And because the signal source is obscured, we can't see the S.H.I.E.L.D. building at all. Colonel Rhodes added in a somewhat heavy tone, "It is very likely that mutant is affecting the signal source." When General Ross heard this, he was silent again. Hearing the other party's words, he had the figure of Chen Tian, who once had a relationship, in his mind. The terrifying power of the other party's hand-tearing abomination is still vividly remembered. At that time, Ross had a great curiosity about the other party, but Chen Tian's performance was too strong, so the arrest plan was temporarily abandoned. And Nick Fury also revealed a strong hatred when expressing his jealousy for Chen Tian. Perhaps, this time it is also Chen Tian? General Ross's thoughts, after proceeding here, the importance of this S.H.I.E.L.D. change in his heart has risen several steps. It seems that this matter must not be careless. I'll try it again. General Ross replied to Rhodes. Then he took a deep breath with a solemn expression and picked up the satellite phone. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. Tribaloid Building Headquarters. Sir, we have brought all the people. 99. An S.H.I.E.L.D. agent reported to the Hill agent in front of him with a solemn expression. Hill agent glanced up and lined up in front of the researchers, all with nervous expressions on their faces. These are the participants that Chen Tian asked to participate in the Super Soldier Serum program. Then she looked at the time on her watch. 20 minutes from what Chen Tian said, there is still 10 minutes of surplus. Roar. Hill agent quietly breathed a sigh of relief. I took out my satellite phone again and tried to contact the outside world for support, but unfortunately the phone was still the same as the previous times. It seems that all signals have been cut off. It seems that only you can be taken down. Hill looked at the researchers with a slightly apologetic look. Sir, what will he do to us? In the crowd, someone in the tense atmosphere still couldn't help but ask. I don't know. Hill agent shook his head. However, in my opinion, that Chen Tian should not want to kill you, otherwise with his strength, there is no need to exert effort to gather you together. 5. Advertisement. I guess he has some other plans. She has now become the most powerful person in S.H.I.E.L.D., which is equivalent to the head of the entire organization, and must be responsible for everyone. Therefore, after leaving Chen Tian's sight, the Hill agent has been trying to ask for outside support and constantly ponder the other party's intentions. Unfortunately, neither side has come up with any definite results. After all, Chen Tian is too powerful and too mysterious at the same time. All his actions seem to have a strong sense of purpose, but from the other party's past life experience, there is not the slightest clue. Oh. Thinking of this, Hill agent couldn't help but sigh. Let's go down first, now we can only cooperate with him as much as possible. Those researchers were even more worried when they heard the words, but the matter had come to this, and they could only cooperate in the face of Chen Tian. However, just as Hill agent was about to lead these people towards the entrance of the building, where Chen Tian and the others were. Bell. The satellite phone around his waist suddenly rang. The call can be answered again. Hill agent's eyes lit up, his heart was happy, and he hurriedly hid sideways behind the building, ready to answer the phone. Then, a white hand suddenly reached from behind and grabbed the ringing satellite phone. Seeing this, Hill agent's body shook and turned his head, his pupils shrank in an instant, and his entire pretty face instantly refreshed. The face that was close at hand was Chen Tian. Phone from the Ministry of Defense. Chen Tian's expression was flat, there didn't seem to be any emotional fluctuations, and his tone was extremely stable. But Hill noticed that under the other party's eyes, there was already a cold-killing intent circulating. With this discovery, she only felt like she was in an ice cellar in an instant, and her whole body was cold, and the fear of death enveloped her in a blink of an eye. I didn't make this call. 35. Hill explained hastily in a panicked tone. Then. Hill, can you hear me? What's going on with S.H.I.E.L.D? We've tried to contact Nick. Fury has been able to get any response several times, so I have chosen to contact you now. 99. Does S.H.I.E.L.D need support at this time? Chen Tian clicked the connect button. On the other end of the satellite phone, General Ross's voice came with eager questions. Boom. Next second. Chen Tian directly squeezed the satellite phone in his hand, and looked at the woman in front of him with a gloomy gaze. Nope. Chen, you believe me. I really dare not disobey you. 35. Hill saw Chen Tian's expression quickly become gloomy, and the killing intent emanating from her body was like a monstrous wave, completely engulfing her whole person. At this moment, she was already overwhelmed by a wave called fear, her heartbeat became heavy, her whole body was cold, and her brain became blank. I thought you were a smart woman. I think you can lead S.H.I.E.L.D on the right path, but you still don't know how to cherish the opportunity when given it. Chen Tian slowly spoke, and every word revealed a deep murderous intention. The air around him, which was already very gloomy, was suddenly filled with a suffocating sense of oppression. Hill was speechless for a while. She was really panicked. Countless excuses flashed in his heart, but he knew that in front of Chen Tian, all the lies had no meaning. Thereupon, Hill Agent only had endless regrets left in his heart. Poof. She knelt directly in front of Chen Tian, tears welling up uncontrollably in her eyes, and her face was distorted. I beg you. Give me another chance, and it won't happen next time. Hill said in a sad tone. Give you another chance? Chen Tian stretched out his hand and clasped the top of Hill's head, his mouth slowly close to the latter's ear. Whoever gave me a chance. He spoke. An intangible mental fluctuation enveloped the group of researchers who had fallen into panic and couldn't help themselves. Those people instantly quieted down and walked towards the door of the building in an orderly manner. Subsequently. Advertisement. Roar. Hill Agent only felt that in a strong sense of weightlessness, everything in the field of vision became a high-speed flashing after image. Come back to your senses. But he found that he had appeared on the top floor of the three-curved wing building, and the endless roar howling wind in the sky was blowing towards him, tearing her hair and dress, and the fear in her heart also spread rapidly at this time. Chen Tian floated in front of Hill, looking down on the ladder. In a pair of eyes, a red luster slowly flowed, and the terrifying murderous machine was surrounded by a terrifying body, and the young man seemed to kill at this moment. It's you and Nick. Fury chose for S.H.I.E.L.D. He whispered, perish. The voice fell. The waves of spiritual fluctuations crashed down, shrouded in the entire three-curved wing building under his feet. Inside the building, all the people who had been working hard before froze in place, stopping all movements like sculptures. Subsequently, Chen Tian's whole person slowly floated up, and a white arc began to flicker on his body. Put the Hill Agent in front of a surveillance screen that can see all corners of the S.H.I.E.L.D. building. Look at it, the demise of SHIELD. Chen Tian said slowly. The next moment, his body suddenly flickered in a blur. Throughout the S.H.I.E.L.D. building, white arcs representing divine speed flashed in all corners. Roar. In the next moment, Chen Tian reappeared in front of the Hill Agent. Ah! No! And the Hill Agent, who was trembling all over and staring blankly at the monitor, suddenly screamed hoarsely. Because she sees, on the monitor, all the people who are controlled in place because of the ability of the mind. After Chen Tian disappeared and reappeared, Everyone's body directly exploded into pieces. Endless pieces of minced flesh, bone stubble, internal organs, and huge amounts of blood spilled out. All the rooms inside the entire three-curved wing building were dyed a dazzling blood red. Every inch of the wall is coated with thick sticky plasma. Just for a moment. In the huge S.H.I.E.L.D. building, there are no other living people except Hill. The number of thousands of agents was slaughtered by Chen Tian in an instant. Demons. Devil. Even though Hill agent has experienced countless dangerous missions, when he sees these images, his spirit is on the verge of collapse. Next second. Syllable. Chen Tian had already pinched her neck and flew outside the building. Here you can see that the entire three-curved wing building that was still brightly lit before, and all the windows that can be seen have turned into an astonishing blood red. The entire building has been transformed into a lifeless purgatory on Earth. All the floors, the corridors, were already dripping with a huge amount of blood-emitting heat. Every wall and glass is covered with minced meat. It was as if not only all the agents in S.H.I.E.L.D., but also the entire three-curved wing building had died. You killed everyone. Hill shivered and spoke, his eyes bloodshot and his brain blank. She looked at a scarlet three-curved wing building, and the whole person had fallen into unspeakable fear. The one who killed S.H.I.E.L.D., you. Chen Tian slowly approached the woman in his hand and slowly spoke, and yourself. The voice fell. Hill felt like his whole body was soaring in the air. Rumble. Two dazzling beams of light, wrapped in majestic power and terrifying temperature, were reflected in her already tear-filled eyes. Hill's thoughts disappeared at this moment. Only endless remorse remains. And then the next moment. Her entire tall body turned into ashes under the impact of majestic red energy. Advertisement. Since then, there is no SHIELD. Chen Tian floated in mid-air, and the red light under his eyes gradually dissipated, without sorrow or joy. Actually, I just want a peaceful life, and you forced me to do it. 99. He muttered. Words fall. Roar. Chen Tian's body high in the air suddenly flickered in a blur. Out of thin air, he appeared in front of Logan and others. At the moment, the scientists involved in the super soldier program were already standing by. S.H.I.E.L.D. won't come to us for trouble in the future, let's go. Chen Tian looked at Logan, a gentle smile appeared on his beautiful face, like a sunny boy next door. Chen. Logan's eyes were complicated, and the question came to his mouth but did not speak. Although he did not see with his own eyes what was really happening in the three-curved wing building. But at the moment, the air was so thick that the smell of blood was so thick that even Wolverin had never smelled it. Even the air turned a faint red, and thickened. Even a few children who did not have such a strong sense of smell couldn't help but frown. It's time for us to go. Chen Tian looked back at each other and smiled. Roar. Please. Logan felt that he had the answer, took a deep breath, and said randomly, where to go next, or back to Drenched Manor. No, let's go to another world. Chen Tian laughed. Where? The rest of the people showed puzzled expressions, none of them had heard of this place. You'll know when you get there, hands on your shoulders. With that, Chen Tian took a step forward, putting one hand on Wolverin's shoulder and the other on Charles. The rest of the people heard this and came over. There are also those researchers who are also under the control of the ability of the mind and gradually gather. The next moment. Buzz one by one. The air rippled, the spatial passage opened, and everyone instantly disappeared in place. Not long after everyone left. A golden ring sputtered golden spots of light and suddenly expanded. Ancient One magician stepped across the space and came to the three-curved wing building. Rao was her, seeing the tall building stained with blood in every corner, she couldn't help frowning. Then, She set her eyes on the place where Chen Tian and the others disappeared. This place, fluctuating energy, seems a little weird. The look under Ancient One Magician's eyes became more and more solemn, and she felt a strange aura. Moreover, she sensed that Chen Tian had disappeared again. And disappeared without a trace. Can't feel the slightest breath of the other party. Roar. Then. In the sky, several figures of different colors flew over. It was the various models of the Iron Man battlesuit, shrouded in deep space like a shade of the sky. Los Angeles Mansion. In the basement. Tony Stark looked at the footage that the battlesuit had filmed for him, and the expression on his face became extremely ugly. Damn. He took a deep breath and slowly took out Nick. One thing Fury gave him before leaving. It was a red and blue BB with the Captain Marvel logo painted on it. After pressing the start button, the BB machine released a powerful signal that spread out into the universe. Far away. It was as if someone had felt the calling. Copy. 104. The night is getting deeper. After discovering that Chen Tian and the others had disappeared, Ancient One Magician sensed a strange energy at the place where the latter disappeared. Subsequently, she searched all possible corners of Chen Tian, but found nothing. This made her jealous of Chen Tian deepen. Before coming, Ancient One Magician sensed Chen Tian's uneasy factor, but found that all the fixed numbers in the world would not change because of him, so he did not intervene much. After all, the dogma she believes in is that if the timeline develops without being affected, nothing will intervene. Until just now. The S.H.I.E.L.D. members who should not have died at this point in time all lost their lives at the same time. That's why I came to the scene, but even she couldn't find Chen Tian. How the hell did Chen Tian do all this? After Ancient One Magician sensed that the timeline began to fluctuate, a solemn look slowly appeared on his face, which was originally only showing a kind gesture. In any case, as long as Chen Tian appears next time, he can't be allowed to continue to exist. After making this decision, Ancient One Magician returned to Camartage and drew all his attention to the whole planet, all the corners. Keep an eye out for Chen Tian's return. As for Tony Stark, on the other hand, also controlled all battle suits, scanned the entire three-curved wing building, and after finding no trace of Chen Tian, he took back the unmanned battle suit sent out. Meantime, took out Nick Fury hands Charles a red and blue BB machine before he sets out to capture him. The other side. As the dark clouds that shrouded Hwaja gradually dispersed, a clear sky was revealed. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. has extremely high authority in many places, the Waldo Police Department sent personnel to visit the situation despite repeated contacts without success. After all, everything that happened before was beyond human imagination. And then, all those who came to visit saw a shocking scene. Not close to the three-curved wing building where S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters is located, a pungent smell of blood can be smelled for several kilometers and cannot be dissipated for a long time. In the night of the building, a dark red mist evaporated outside. Stay closer. You will find that the ground within a radius of 1 kilometer of the building has been crisscrossed with large and small streams, made of 790 blood groups. Maybe the amount of blood is too great. Even if those blood streams were exposed to the cold night breeze, they had not lost their temperature and were bubbling with a faint heat. Then come directly to the gate of the three-curved wing building. None of the people sent by the police station could hold back the physical discomfort, and they all leaned over and vomited. Damn it! What's going on here? This place is still Satan's back garden. Some policemen couldn't help but raise their heads and scold, and then lowered their heads and vomited. They had just arrived at the gate of the Sank Wing building. Then he noticed Nick Fury, who was lying on the ground, no longer in human form. If you look through the gate, you can see that there is almost endless blood, rushing down the stairs, constantly, and then out of the gate, into the crimson streams. Inside the bright red steaming blood-red stream, there are also floating fat, minced meat, fine bone stubble. Damn it! There are even full eyeballs. There was a young policeman who had just finished vomiting, and his whole face looked up with a pale face, looking at the things washed down by the stream, and then he couldn't help but lean over and vomit wildly. We have to get out of here quickly and report this to the above. The middle-aged policeman in charge of leading the team was the first to recover from the impact of the scene and gritted his teeth. The other policemen naturally did not have any objections to this, for fear of staying in front of the three-curved wing building for one more second, and frantically rushed back to the car. Advertisement. At the same time, the situation of the three-curved wing building was reported back. When the high-level officials of Waju heard this incident and saw the photos taken by the police, they were also shocked. All police and the FBI were immediately dispatched and the scene was blocked within a radius of 20 kilometers. Not surprisingly, everyone who saw the current appearance of the Sankwing mansion was shocked and could not return to their senses for a long time. This is Nick Fury. There are established FBI agents, see Nick. When Fury was miserable about the corpse, he couldn't help but sigh. Back then, I was a lot sad that I failed the SHIELD assessment. I didn't expect this organization to be so dangerous. What a terrible enemy they faced. Later, he quickly asked his subordinates to inform the military personnel. What? S.H.I.E.L.D. was wiped out. The people who stayed in the mansion, none of them survived. After General Ross heard the news reported by his subordinates in the earpiece, his pupils couldn't control and suddenly shrunk, and his expression froze on his face. He knew Nick Fury will not end well after offending Chen Tian, but it will never be the end of S.H.I.E.L.D. Drip. Right at this moment. On the communicator in General Ross's hand, a photo of his subordinates jumped. It is the site of the three-curved wing building. Fac. When he saw the scene of inhumanity like hell on earth, he couldn't help but tighten his spine, and a cold breath suddenly penetrated from the tail vertebrae from the top of his head. Can that Chen Tian do things so well? General Ross's mind was already blank, and his pupils were concussed. There is fear in the mood, there is sadness, there is fear. He was afraid of Chen Tian's strength, and even the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. was not his opponent, turning into such a terrifying appearance. Grief for Nick Fury's death was the first thing that Ross became interested in Chen Tian, and it was the other party who dissuaded him. Unfortunately, in the end, Nick Fury failed to persuade himself. Damn it! The impact of this matter is too great, and it must be reported to Congress quickly. After a while. Only then did General Ross recover from his shock and dial the White House's phone. Soon. The highest officials in the entire United States gathered in the White Room to open the meeting. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is an important organization of the state and even the divine world. After the meeting starts, the initiator sent everyone a document with a photo of the mansion. Subsequently, the entire environment in the conference room can be described as a needle falling, terribly low. No one made a sound, and they all looked down at the photos taken from S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Every face is filled with disbelief. Shit. Don't tell me it's really happening. These Bolognese-like things, a day ago, were all alive. God. Is this the devil coming to earth? After a while, those high-ranking officials all released shocked exclamations. If they weren't in the White Room, they would even suspect that this was nothing more than a prank. The picture on the material in hand can't even be reviewed as a movie. For a while, various voices came out of the mouths of those officials. And all the meaning is nothing more than one. Advertisement. At all costs, mutant, who committed such a horrific crime, must be killed. The other side. The government military also dispatched countless people to start cleaning up the S.H.I.E.L.D headquarters, which was like hell. This night is not destined to be peaceful. Meanwhile, beyond the 9 realms, the universe is like a vast black canvas that cannot be seen at a glance. There are countless behemoth star fields all over it, and endless rivers of stars emitting 9 colorful stars flow towards it. There are endless stars, each of which is a fixed star that has been around for an unknown number of years. All fixed stars are surrounded by a larger number of planets. If you compare everything that shocks people to the vast ocean, the Earth is just tiny gravel that sinks to the bottom of the sea. The gravel of life like Earth is innumerable in the BFDD universe. And one of them is inhabited by a pale yellow planet full of strange inhabitants for humans. There's a big event going on. This event is located in the center of the planet's equator. The entire planet can be called the life of the strong, and they all gathered here, turning into an ocean-like crowd, guarding all the high platforms below. The woman who was giving a speech on the stage was attracting the attention of everyone present. This woman wears a tight red and blue uniform, which vividly outlines the curves of her bumpy figure, and a golden 5-pointed star is embellished on her chest, which is propped up. Her blonde hair was soft and shiny, and her skin was smooth and white, like condensed white jade. On a curvy face, the facial features are matched together, and there is no flaw, and I can only admire the perfection. Like Amber's clear eyes, his gaze is sharp and full of a sense of justice. The voice is pleasant and soft, and when speaking, it is full of power and inspiration. Everyone at the scene listened to the woman's speech, and they all fell silent, and their eyes were full of adoration when they looked at her. Wait for the woman to finish her speech. The host next to him stood up with an excited smile. Stanford Buster Hale. He raised his fist and shouted. The audience in the audience was also ignited with passion, and also issued a round of shouts like a tsunami. Stanford Hale. Stanford Buster Hale. Subsequently, the host glanced at the woman next to him who was full of excited smiles, and once again raised his arms and shouted, "Let's cheer for Captain Marvel Kakarol. It is she who brings us peace and brings us ministers." Speaking of this, the host paused, took a deep breath, and shouted in a higher volume. "Everyone! Cheer on Captain Marvel Carol." A word fell. "It's like a stone stirring up 1,000 waves." The crowd under the stage was crowded, like a tidal wave, and when you looked at the crowd from the stage, you couldn't even see the marginal crowd, and in an instant it was ignited with higher enthusiasm. All the faces that could be seen showed a maniacal smile at the woman named Kakarol, free heartfelt gratitude. Driven by such emotions, everyone shouted with all their strength. "Captain Carol, hail! Captain Marvel hail! Captain Carol, hail! Captain Marvel hail! Captain Carol, hail! Captain Marvel hail!" One by one, shouts from different people, but with the same content, burst out in an instant, and the terrifying sound like a mountain roaring tsunami gathered together and spread towards the sky. Even because of those present. There are too many of them, and when they shout, everyone comes from the bottom of their hearts, exhausts their enthusiasm and strength. Advertisement. That wave of sound turned into a substantial sound wave and spread out. Even the air and the ground are trembling. All this is a gratitude and thank you gift to the woman on stage. She's Captain Marvel. He was originally an Air Force flight member on Earth, but by chance he was hit by a cosmic energy beam, thus obtaining amazing super ability, and also became a Kree Empire spirit. Warriors of the British Armed Star Troopers. Since then, Captain Marvel has been fighting for the protection of the peace of the universe race. She felt the Stanford nemesis who was excited to usher in peace, and her eyes full of heroism and beauty also showed a smile. Immediately took a step forward, took the host's microphone, and looked at the crowd who shouted enthusiastically, "I am very happy, the people on this planet can get rid of the race war. Destroy, embrace peace. Peace, that is more precious than anything. What I pursue at the moment is that no war will be seen in any corner of the universe. After that, I will leave Stanford Buster and continue my career. An impassioned speech once again pushed the excitement of everyone in the audience to a higher place. In their eyes, Captain Marvel's body, which could only look up, became more and more respectful at this moment. Because what she said was not a false big empty word, but really did it. Captain Marvel! Captain Marvel! Captain Marvel! Another round of cheers and cheers erupted with a greater momentum than just now. Everyone under the high platform was excited, shouting and cheering, and extremely excited. That's nice. Captain Marvel watched the scene with a big smile on his face. Then, diddy. Her brow furrowed as the communication device she was carrying rang urgently. This rapid ringing means that something trouble has happened. Sure enough. Next second. An anxious voice then sounded, "Carol, we received Nick. A distress signal from Fury. Hear the news." Captain Marvel was slightly stunned. I remembered years ago, when I returned to Earth, with Nick. After Fury met and became close friends, he once left a BB machine for help in a critical situation. Take Nick. Fury's character must be that the Earth has encountered some extremely dangerous situation before he sends out a call for help. The expression on Captain Marvel's face suddenly became solemn. At the end of the day, Nick. Fury is her best friend, and Earth is her hometown. Now hearing that the Earth is likely to encounter extremely serious danger, his best friend will face casualties. Captain Marvel isn't serious anymore. I always have a bad feeling. Captain Marvel thought. Immediately, she did not have the intention to continue to participate in the gratitude activity, and after talking to the host, she hurriedly said goodbye to the scene. Fire-like cosmic power gushed out from her body, enveloping her body. The next moment, Whew! Captain Marvel burst out with an extremely terrifying speed, left the planet, and rushed towards the direction of the Nine Realms Midgard. As she walked forward, she dragged out a long golden tail flame. It's like a dazzling shooting star. In the blink of an eye, it disappears into tiny points of light. 105. In the Marvel Universe, various things are happening because of what Chen Tian did. Black Robe Picket World. One is located on the top floor of the top floor of the top of the world. The air suddenly began to produce ripples like ripples, and then in the center of the circle of ripples, a spatial passage appeared. The next moment, Chen Tian took Wolverin, Logan and others across the dimension of space and appeared in the villa. It's there. Chen Tian smiled at the few people in front of him who looked up at the surrounding villas, and introduced with a smile, "Next, this is where we temporarily live. Now I can assure you that for a long time to come, there will be no more existence that will disturb us." Naturally, he won't say anything big. After all, this is the world of black-robed pickets. And the world's top combat power, Homelander, has become Chen Tian's subject. As long as Logan and they don't do anything that threatens the whole world, and let the people of this world launch nuclear bombs against them, naturally there will be no problems. Definitely. Later, when Chen Tian began to face opponents who had the ability to cross space, it was a different matter. But at that time, it was obviously far away. So, after bringing Wolverine into this world, it is undoubtedly very safe, as Chen Tian said. Chen, your ability is really more and more beyond my imagination. You can do that now. Charles, who was in a wheelchair, finally began to slowly regain his senses. And he has felt the existence of all the biological brainwaves in the entire Marvel world, so he has already noticed changes just after crossing the world. Charles was surprised to find that he was no longer on Earth, and could even be said to have come to another world. Chen, did you suddenly disappear before? Did you have this ability that can be teleported? Logan was also amazed at the sudden change in the environment around him. Unexpectedly, when he first met himself, he was just Chen Tian, who had a weak ability to control water, and he had grown to such a point. "Is this your new home?" Laura and Wanda were already excited and started running around the spacious room. Joke. Chen Tian can now be called the only king in this world, controlling the world's largest company, Wald Corporation. The entire property of all its shareholders can be squandered by him. So the area occupied by the large flat floor they are now in is also extremely wide. Even the two girls running wildly inside had no problem at all. "Laura, look." Then Wanda noticed the view of the entire city in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, so she called out to her little sisters and looked at them with wide eyes. As for why Chen Tian was able to do it, suddenly bringing them here, the two little girls were not surprised at all. Chen is so powerful, no matter what he can do, it will not be surprising. He's totally Superman. The other side. Charles looked at Chen Tian, his cloudy eyes thoughtful. "It's not the world we were in before, is it?" He slowly voiced his doubts. "I feel that there are more things in this world, and at the same time, there are some things missing." "Yes." Chen Tian did not deny it and answered directly. After all, even a person without supernatural abilities, as long as he has a normal understanding of the world, after coming to another different world for a period of time, he can discover the fact that he has changed the world. As for Charles, who uses the smartest brain, let alone that. So he directly chose to affirm the other party's statement. "Chen, are you saying that you not only took us across space, but even brought us to another world?" Wolverin Logan, on the other hand, was shocked when she heard the conversation between the two. Advertisement. After all, the extent to which Chen Tian can do it now is really outrageous. In the same world, the ability across space, he has not heard of it. But ability, which travels directly to another world, is arguably unheard of. So, is Chen already an Omega-level mutant now? He murmured and asked. "I think it should be." Charles replied with a smile. Chen Tian's speed of strengthening was also shocking and surprising. But at the end of the day, Chen Tian is a companion who stands with them and fights together for mutant tomorrow. Therefore, after learning that the other party has been able to grow to such a point, Charles's heart of rent, the emotions he has, are more joy. Sure enough, mutants' hope is in Chen Tian. Also, no one in the world discriminates against mutant, and they even idolize him. Chen Tian said with a smile. At the same time, he walked to the two girls by the floor-to-ceiling window and reached out and touched their heads. His eyes were on the poster of the Super 6 on the street. It was at this time that he discovered that the posters that are now hanging on the streets are except for the Super 6. And even himself. Moreover, Chen Tian's poster alone turned out to be even bigger than the poster of the Super 6 combined. Damn it! He noticed this and couldn't help but num a dirty word. Then I felt a little helpless. After all, his previous battle with the Super 6 left a lot of influence on the entire city and even the entire world. If Wald cannot handle it properly, it is destined to suffer a lot of losses. And promoting Chen Tian as the strongest superhero emerging from Wald is undoubtedly the best public relations treatment. Not only can it completely eliminate the impact of Chen Tian's defeat of the Super 6 before, it can even increase the popularity of Wald Company. Now, in a way, Wald has become Chen Tian's private property. The people under his command chose the most appropriate way to deal with it, and it seemed that they were also preserving their property, and he didn't want to say much. Gee! This is really famous in this world. Thinking of this, Chen Tian could only shake his head silently. Then he glanced at Laura and Wanda. No wonder these two little girls, after looking out the window, are unwilling to move. It turned out to see me. Actually, can you walk calmly under the sun? Logan was a little incredulous for a moment. Definitely. Chen Tian looked back and smiled. Logan, if you want, you can even attract the attention of the people of the world like when you were in the X-Men. Haha. Logan smiled and shook his head when he heard this. Forget about this, but I don't mind enjoying life here. Saying that, the expression on his face became serious. However, Chen, after all, this is not our home, and I still want to return to the land of birth. So, is it true that you said that the professor and I can regain the strength of our youth? Flowers fall. He noticed that the smile on Chen Tian's face on the other side became stronger. Naturally, it's true. As Chen Tian spoke, he looked at the few researchers left behind from SHIELD. Mind ability spreads out. The men immediately began to walk towards the elevator. Chen Tian also connected to Edgar's phone at the same time. Edgar, I brought a few researchers, you arrange them to the underground laboratory of Compound 5. Good host. Edgar on the other side of the phone looked very respectful. Later, Chen Tian arranged a room for a few more people. In the process, he was surprised to find that Pete was surprisingly cooperative, and he did not show fear of himself in his actions. Advertisement. However, he may still be a little timid and dare not say much. At last, when taking Laura alone to the room arranged for her, Chen Tian noticed that this little guy suddenly looked a little unhappy, and then squatted in front of Laura with a smile. Laura, I know you're thinking about those mutant friends of yours. He laughed. Actually, after coming here, I already thought about it, maybe I could bring them here. When he said this, Laura's eyes lit up significantly. Chen Tian touched the other party's head dotingly, and this little girl's mind was too easy to guess, and she didn't even need to have a mental ability. Definitely. He was going to bring all those little mutants with him, not just for Laura. In the end, even if there is no Laura's meaning, those little mutants are Chen Tian's stay in New York, and naturally it is impossible to directly abandon them. Moreover, Chen Tian also wants to build his own mutant empire in the Marvel Universe, and those little guys are indispensable cornerstones. Really? Laura looked at Chen Tian, said with some expectation, and then a little hesitation, if it's troublesome, don't use it, as long as they're safe. It's okay, I just need a moment to bring those little guys back. Chen Tian smiled and pinched Laura's little face. Dimensional teleportation is then turned on again. But after a few minutes, they easily brought the little mutants back. In the few minutes of his return, Chen Tian also learned that the American Congress had issued a killing and arrest order against him. Definitely, these things are not worth his heart. Laura. Those little ones, after seeing the changing environment around them, were amazed. There are also some little mutants who have the best relationship with Laura, and they see Laura at a glance. Happy ran over and hugged her. And when dozens of children, Twitter and discuss various issues. Chen Tian contacted Ashley and asked the manager of the Super 6 to arrange accommodation for the little mutants. And because, in the world of black-robed pickets, mutant doesn't have to hide it. Therefore, Ashley easily arranged this group of children into a large manner. At the same time, all the identity information and enrollment procedures were also done for them. When they heard that they also had the opportunity to go to school, many little mutants had a grim expression on their faces. Ask for flowers. Before that, they didn't even think that they would actually be able to go to the school for a normal day. Definitely. The Wanda siblings, as well as Laura, did not escape the admission process. However, because these few days are just in time for the summer vacation, the children do not have to rush to school soon. And in the next few days, Chen Tian was in no hurry to go elsewhere. Fang, stay and rest all the time. From time to time, I will go to the Wald Company to pay attention to the Super Soldier No. 5 compound serum, how is it made? In addition, it is to stimulate the potential of the bloodline and enhance your strength by basking in the sun. Take the time to tease Wanda and Laura. And Wolverine Logan, except for the first day, when she was not familiar with the world of black-robed pickets, still seemed a little cautious when she went out. In the days that followed, he had once again experienced the feeling that mutant would walk down the street, not only without discrimination, but even adoration. Logan found that he could even display his steel claws on the street. So, after a few days, Logan was also very happy. Even rarely come back except sleep. Frequent outings for entertainment. Even made friends, and several new female friends. There is quite a bit of a restoration of the style of the past. The whole person looked a lot more energetic, completely getting rid of the feeling of an old wolf appearance before. Advertisement. As for Charles, he usually likes to ask people to push himself and walk through those streets with large file sizes. Enjoy a life where no one knows themselves and no one is wary of themselves. Moreover, I have to say that although Charles is older, his original elegant temperament is still difficult to hide. 0. There are several elderly sisters who don't mind having a twilight love with him. Unfortunately, they were all rejected by Charles. The days flew by. More than a month passed day by day. Wanda and the others continued to resume the 20 days of school in a month. The Super Soldier Plus Compound 5 is also progressing rapidly, but it is not completed yet. And Chen Tian himself finally couldn't be idle and planned to go to the new universe to see. However, the universe he is going to choose this time is not the DC universe. Now with my strength, I can also try to go to other universes. Chen Tian ended the day sunbathing with a message for Logan and Charles. He walked back to his room. If you want to improve your strength rapidly, you naturally need to go to the cosmic time node when there is a big event. Chen Tian thought about it, and suddenly a few labels that he wanted to go to the universe to have next came to mind. Marvel, The Avengers, Doomsday, New York City. He thought about these few keywords. Then, with a movement of his mind, he turned on dimensional teleportation. Buzz. Next second. As Chen Tian's thoughts opened, Deo ripples began to appear in the space in front of him. Then the dimensional channel began, and Chen Tian's body disappeared in place. Arrived. Chen Tian felt that he had completed the dimensional teleportation, and he had a down-to-earth feeling, and suddenly thought. Meanwhile, before he opened his eyes, he smelled a strong smell of gun smoke and decay, wafting towards the tip of his nose. There should be no mistake, I should have come to New York where the first level Avengers Alliance happened. Thinking. Chen Tian opened his eyes. Barren. The moment the whole city entered his eyes, his first feeling was desolation. All the buildings, although still barely preserved, do not share the breath of life. Everywhere you look at it, it's a lifeless feeling. Moreover, scrapped vehicles can be seen everywhere, as well as smashed glass, and marks on the walls due to impacts. Even, there are quite a few bones that have dried up, rolling on the ground, provoking flies. This is New York in the world of Marvel. Chen Tian flight went into mid-air, looked down, and determined that this place was New York. You can even see the Stark Industrial Building. However, on the streets of the entire city, in the alleys of large file sizes, and in the buildings as far as he could see, I can't see a living person. Even, you can't hear half of the sounds that are produced by humans. For a moment, Chen Tian had a feeling that although 80% of the buildings in the city are still well preserved, but it's dead. After all, cities are built by humans, and cities that lose humans naturally die. What Marvel world did I come to? Chen Tian pondered and landed in the middle of the empty Times Square. He stood in front of the huge screen that had been extinguished by the power outage, frowned, and fell into deep thought. What Marvel world am I in? Open a new world, a new universe. The comment area can leave a name, a good choice, don't be too pranked. Spoon. 106. Which Marvel universe is this? Chen Tian floated in the air, looking at the empty street, and couldn't help but ask such a question. At the moment, it's noon. A big day hangs high. However, even in such cases, the midday sun, shining on the empty streets, will make people feel a little less alive. Call. Suddenly, the wind blew through, bringing a whining echo in the streets and uninhabited buildings. The sound was very sharp and long, coming from every corner. It was as if the whole city was crying. Maybe you should look around. Chen Tian narrowed his eyes, and for a while, Rao couldn't find out in his memory which Marvel universe he was in. Thinking. He fell to the ground again. Trample. The soles of my feet made a soft sound on the already somewhat dry road. Chen Tian couldn't help but glance back at the stark building that did exist in this New York. This is not the Marvel universe, but it's too weird. I can't even feel the breath of a living person, and Thanos still has half of the people left after snapping his fingers. Shaking his head, he did not continue to entangle, but the surprise in his heart was still churning uncontrollably. He began to walk along the path in front of him. Definitely. At his apparent speed, even if he just walked, he was much faster than a high-speed car. Chen Tian just passed one road after another that was completely invisible. Strangely, there wasn't even a bird in the sky, and there were no mice or bugs on the ground. All the way. All that can be seen is the uncared for, barbarically growing roadside greenery. There are also weeds that stubbornly drill out of the cracks in the ground. Judging from the growth of those weeds, this New York should not have been abandoned for more than half a month. 673. Chen Tian silently judged in his heart. The surprise in my heart has not been eliminated to this day. I remember that before I turned on Dimensional Crossing, the label Avengers 3 should have crossed my mind. Is this New York invaded by Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf? He continued walking, looking up at the empty building in front of him, but even the rest of the city has moved to other places because the city is too badly damaged. But how can there still be maintenance workers left, right? It's not like there's no one at all. In my impression, there is no Marvel universe where everyone just abandoned New York. Chen Tian was puzzled for a while. It's between my thoughts. He found himself in front of a church-like house. Chen Tian glanced up, then prepared to leave, and did not intend to go in to take a look. Right at this moment. Boom. Behind the gate of this building, there was a sudden sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Definitely. This is not the most important thing. The important thing is, there is an extra person out of thin air. Through his extraordinary five senses, Chen Tian heard the breathing and heartbeat of people in the church building in front of him through the door. His eyes lit up, and he finally let himself find a little different. Thinking. Chen Tian pushed open the door in front of him without hesitation. Anyway, with divine speed power and dimensional teleportation, if you encounter an existence that can't be beaten, you can run away directly. Moreover, he felt that the people in the room did not seem to be strong in combat. Squeak. Chen Tian pushed open the door. I saw that on the wooden stairs in the building, something had already smashed a big hole. At the same time, there is a man with curly hair, from which a head is poked out. Advertisement. Hello, do you have any extra clothes there to borrow me? When the man saw Chen Tian's appearance, he revealed a somewhat strange-looking smile. Chen Tian saw the man's face and paused. Isn't this Dr. Bruce Banner of the Hulk? It seems that he came to the Marvel Universe. Thinking. Chen Tian turned on supervision. Then close it quickly. On the wooden staircase, Banner, who smashed a big hole, was undressed. Meantime, Chen Tian's heart began to come to his senses, and he vaguely guessed which Marvel universe this was. Then, Banner's expression in the opposite staircase suddenly became very serious. Thanos is going to invade Earth. I need to quickly inform the Avengers. It's clear. Banner didn't know that New York outside had become an empty dead city. It's certain. Chen Tian thought silently, only Banner appeared in the entire New York City, and the others were nowhere to be seen. It seems that this world is the zombie universe in Marvel. What if? Except for a very few, everyone else, including the rest of Avengers, turned into zombies. It's just Bruce who was teleported back. Banner, it's not clear what the situation is now. Wait a minute. Chen Tian thought for a while, did not directly tell the other party the truth. This kind of thing only needs Banner himself to enter New York City to take a look. To say it in advance now is nothing more than a waste of saliva. Thinking. Chen Tian quickly found a set of clothes for the other party. Thank you so much. Banner took the clothes handed by Chen Tian and looked grateful. After quickly changing his clothes, he climbed out of the large hole in the stairs. I'm going to find the other Avengers now, thank you again for your help. Banner smiled and nodded to Chen Tian. Then he walked out the door. Let's go together, I also have something to do with the Avengers. Chen Tian smiled and walked out with him. Then. Damn, what's going on in New York? Why is there not half a ghost? Banner looked at the empty street outside, there was not the slightest bit of people, and his face was full of disbelief. Could it be that Thanos already snapped his fingers when I was there? Isn't he still short of a mind gem? Chen Tian was not surprised that he would react like this. In fact, when he didn't think that this was the world of Marvel, what if, he was no less surprised than Banner. Perhaps, something worse may have happened here. Immediately, he said from the side. The voice just fell. A white pillar of light shot into the sky. One after another, strong air currents and aftermath spread out where the pillar of light fell, setting off gusts of wind and waves. Then, I saw that inside the white pillar of light, two figures slowly emerged. Both figures are in human form. It's just that one of them has gray-white skin and hair, no nose on his face, and his blue robe looks like a king. Standing there, it gives a feeling of elegance and calmness. The other person was 2 meters tall, under the dark red skin, his muscles were like a rock, like a knot of tree roots, and he held a giant axe in his hand. Even doing nothing exudes a terrifying sense of oppression. These two figures can tell at a glance that they are not human beings on the earth. These two guys are Thanos men. The moment Banner saw these two figures appear, the expression on his face was stunned, and his brows slowly wrinkled. Damn, why did you come to chase to Earth so quickly? Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf. Chen Tian also recognized the identities of the two visitors. Stop struggling in vain. Ebony Maw, dressed like a Confucian sorcerer, slowly spoke. Advertisement. Black Dwarf, who was like an iron tower next to him, was even lazier to say anything, snorted coldly, and brandished his battle axe and prepared to step forward. Backwards. Banner looked at the two guys who appeared in front of him, his expression was immediately serious, and he reached out to let Chen Tian back off. Then he took a step forward, clenched his hands into fists, and clenched his teeth. Banner is ready to transform into Hulk. Ah! He hissed. The muscles around the body instantly inflated like a balloon, the skin quickly turned green, and the long face quickly became vicious. No. However, just when Banner is about to complete the tipping point of the transition with Hulk, the consciousness that belonged to Hulk suddenly roared with intention. Immediately, Banner had just swelled to half his size, and instantly shrunk back again. Hulk, you come out. Banner looked down at his fist, his face was dazed, he deliberately failed to transform. Chen Tian, behind him, knew the truth of the matter. Banner belongs to the personality of Hulk, and after going through a series of things, he feels that he is a monster who does not fit in with everyone else. Therefore, after returning to Earth, he is unwilling to continue to show his true body. Refuse to let Banner transform. Damn it! Hulk, come out. Banner looked at Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf, who were getting closer and closer to them, and was so anxious that they almost cried. As a result, no matter how he called and tried to be angry, none of the Hulk personalities in the body intend to respond to him. Airplanes. Right at this moment, Ebony Maw, who has no nose and gray skin on the opposite side, stretched out his hand towards the abandoned car on the side. Immediately, there seemed to be an extra big invisible hand in the air, holding up the car and preparing to smash it towards Banner and Chen Tian. There is no need for you to resist fearlessly, and if you are enemies of Lord Thanos, the end is death. Ebony Maw spoke unhurriedly. The words fell. Rumble. Two red beams of light wrapped in majestic power and endless high temperature instantly blasted through the air, dyeing the surrounding space within more than 10 meters red. Ebony Maw didn't even have time to react. I only felt that the world in front of me suddenly turned red, and a terrifying high temperature instantly paved out. The next moment, its slender torso and head were directly wrapped in majestic red energy, and instantly turned into flying ash. Poof. Only two scorched thighs remained at the break, which fell to the ground. Ebony Maw. Die. Oh my God. Banner exclaimed and turned his head to look at Chen Tian's slowly convergent red eyes, his pupils convulsed, and he was surprised. He didn't expect that this oriental boy in front of him would actually have such a terrifying method. It's amazing. The other side. Fack. What did you do? Black Dwarf, who is Ebony Maw's companion, watched his companion's tragic death, and was suddenly shocked and angry. His eyes stared at Chen Tian, and he roared. As soon as the words fell, all the knotted muscles on his body tensed, and a terrifying sense of strength erupted. Immediately wielding the giant axe, he was ready to rush towards Chen Tian. Next second. Whew! Chen Tian's figure actually flashed directly in front of Black Dwarf. How so? The latter saw the boy who suddenly flashed in front of him, and his eyes were shocked, because he was fast. How fast can anyone be? Chen Tian didn't care about the questions in the other party's heart, and threw out his fist directly. Rumble. A white jade-like fist, passing through several sound barriers, the wolf was on Black Dwarf's chest. Advertisement. The latter's chest collapsed directly inward, creating a huge crater. Meanwhile, behind the Black Dwarf, a high bulge first bulged, and then the bulge exploded directly. On his back, spawned another huge amount of bloody hole. Countless scarlet blood with hot air, mixed with bones and visceral fragments, sprayed out from the big hole. But in an instant, the ground tens of meters behind him was coated with a layer of viscous liquid mixed with flesh. Black Dwarf's eyes bulged, his pupils stained with dense bloodshots, and his expression was extremely hideous. He opened his mouth to say something. In the next second, blood flowed out from the 7 tips, and the entire huge body went straight forward and smashed the ground. The body quickly cooled and had lost its vitality. Oh my God! Bruce! Banner watched the scene and was directly speechless. In just 2 seconds, the 2 strong men under Thanos were easily killed by the teenager in front of him. If Banner hadn't known the strength of Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf, just watching the scene just now, he would even think that these 2 were just 2 miscellaneous fish. But he knew in his heart that it was not these 2 guys who were weak. It's that Chen Tian is too strong. The 2 subordinates who were so strong that Thanos was most proud were completely worthless in front of him. You. Who the hell are you? Bruce. It took Banner a long time to control the shock in his heart before he took a deep breath and asked Chen Tian. You can call me, Chen. Chen Tian took in the other party's reaction, raised his eyebrows, and laughed softly. Meanwhile, in his mind, the ability copy prompt that had just sounded echoed. Combat detected, rewarded, ebony maw. Battle detected, rewarded, super strength, black dwarf. And Chen Tian also felt his strength increase again. At the same time, there is an additional mind control ability, which can control objects in the air like ebony maw. It's a bit of a gain. He thought silently. The other side. Bruce. After hearing Chen Tian's words, Banner reacted, and the latter was reluctant to say more. Since this is the case, although he is still curious in his heart, out of politeness, he did not continue to ask. At least it is certain that the Oriental boy with a mysterious origin in front of him is not the 0.2 people on Thanos' side. According to the current situation, as long as they are not Thanos people, they can be counted as comrades in arms in a short period of time. The thoughts go on here. Bruce. Banner set his eyes back on the empty streets around him. I don't know what happened, where did the people go? He couldn't help but complain. And yet, right then, not far from Chen Tian and him, several circles of golden arbitrary doors suddenly appeared out of thin air, and golden stars splashed everywhere. The next moment, a golden red steel figure stumbled out of it, shaking with every step, as if it might fall at any time. Tony? What happened in the city again? Where did everyone else go? Bruce. The moment Banner saw the other party, he recognized the identity of the figure. It's Iron Man Tony Stark. He immediately stepped forward eager to hold the other party, and at the same time had a stomach full of doubts to seek answers. For your own good, I advise you not to go over, he is very wrong now. At this time, Chen Tian beside him spoke in a deep voice, and reached out to pull him. Bruce. Banner felt the power coming from the young man's hand, and couldn't help but look back at Chen Tian in confusion. Roar. Next second, Tony, who kept his head down, Stark, a weird low roar suddenly came out of his throat. Bruce. Banner heard the sound, and when he turned his head again, the other party just raised his head. Damn it! He couldn't help but curse, his brows furrowed and his face changed slightly. Meet Tony on the other side. Stark's face turned out to be completely rotten. His gray muscles were exposed, and there was even an eyeball that rolled down from his eye socket as he looked up. And at the same time, behind him, there are two figures, the same strange Doctor Strange and Wong. 107. Roar. Tony in a golden red battle suit. Stark staggered his head, revealing his rotten and gray face in the sunlight, and an eyeball rolled out of his socket, which he picked up and put back on. A low roar came out of his throat, hungry. Damn it! Tony, how did you become liquid? Bruce. Banner looked at the other party's terrifying look, and his heart was shocked and trembling, far from expecting that he was just going to a tangled, and his familiar friend changed his appearance. This is indeed the lost universe in Marvel. What if everyone became zombies left with only hunger? Chen Tian had already prepared to see the other party like this, but there were not many surprises. These guys have also maintained a certain sanity after becoming lost, and the most important thing is that ability will continue to be retained. I can still continue to replicate ability on them, that's the most important thing. No matter what this Marvel universe becomes, as long as he can copy ability, this trip will not be for nothing. Besides, in fact, there are many benefits in this seemingly unbearable universe. For example, the world has lost Wanda, and Chen Tian can draw chaos from her. Without waiting for me to grow up, Wanda, who has become a zombie in this universe, already has enough powerful origin magic power. Moreover, if it is in the future, the little Wanda will also awakening origin magic power. For Tian, you can get double the ability house plus. Moreover, there is still vision in this universe, and I will not directly poach the mind gem of Vision Brain Gate without sword intent at that time. As Chen Tian's thoughts progressed, he became more and more looking forward to the gains he could gain from this journey. Now he is still not strong enough, even if he is only confined to the Earth stage, it is not enough. Unless you are willing to hide forever in a small world like the black-robed pickets and become a soil emperor. However, since we have crossed a situation and have the ability to copy the ability, how can we be willing to settle for the status quo? Just as Chen Tian was in thought. Roar. Food. Tony, who has become lost, behind Stark, within any door circle, two figures walked out again. It was also the zombie Doctor Strange, and the Magician King. They stared at Chen Tian and Bruce, who had not yet been infected. Banner, I-15, glowing green as if seeing the most delicious food in the world. After being infected with the zombie virus, although you can maintain a certain sanity, you will basically be overwhelmed by absolute hunger. Only when you are full can you reluctantly think. Moreover, even if you eat enough, you will quickly recover from hunger. Bruce. Banner was immediately shocked when he felt the other party's surging desire coming to him. Oh my God. Chen, you hurry up and solve them. Now that Hulk doesn't want to come out, it's up to you. He turned his head to Chen Tian beside him, and he was so nervous. Even if the other side is a few former partners, but now that they have become like this, it is not time to show mercy. Chen Tian heard his shout, came back to his senses, and looked at the zombies on the opposite side. Right at this moment, a golden circle suddenly appeared out of thin air behind him, and on the opposite side was King Wang, who had turned into a zombie and had a grey face and a hideous face. Food. King Magician completely lost his mind at this moment, his behavior was dominated by hunger, and he stretched out his hand towards the young man in front of him with a low roar. Battle detected, rewarded, King of Dimensions. Chen Tian, who was close to him, immediately sounded the prompt sound of copying ability. Received, thank you. Chen Tian listened to the prompt, a smile was outlined at the corner of his mouth, and then he stretched out his hand and directly clasped the other party's head. Pull the king's head out of the circle portal. At the same time, he activated the dimensional gate ability he had just obtained to cancel out the dimensional gate started by the Magician King. Advertisement. The golden dimensional door quickly closed. Roar. The king, whose head was held, struggled hard, but how could his strength be comparable to Chen Tian? Although the whole body is barely 2 times more than the average person, it still can't move. I could only watch as the golden aperture shrank rapidly, and then directly cut off his head from his body. Poof. Wang stayed in Tony, the body behind Stark fell with a thump. And Chen Tian, who was dozens of meters away, also casually threw Wang's head away. I'll free you, no thanks. He laughed. Chen Tian then set his sights on the loss of Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. Next, it's your turn. However, not waiting for him to be out of the ordinary. Buzz. In the air, the sound of dense insects flapping their wings suddenly sounded. In the next instant, a thick black fog turned the zombie Tony Stark and Doctor Strange engulf. The latter's body quickly began to dissolve, and holes appeared on the gray skin, expanding and expanding, and the muscles inside were also rapidly dissolving. If you look closely, you will find that the black fog is actually an endless number of flying insects. The muscles that disappeared on Doctor Strange's body were completely eaten by those flying insects. Roar. Before dying, the zombie Doctor Strange let out a roar of incompetent rage, and finally the entire body fell to the ground with only one skeleton. Roar. It's just because of the loss of Tony Stark was protected by battle suits and didn't take much damage. Just as it raised its hand, ready to blast those flying insects with an energy cannon. Among the thousands of mosquitoes, a figure suddenly became larger, and with a wave of the blue laser flashing in his hand, he cut off the zombie Tony Stark's head. At that time, a woman in a black uniform with a sturdy figure and wasp wings behind her. Queen's Bee Girl. Chen Tian recognized the identity of the other party. I'm Bruce S. Banner, Thanks, don't know your name yet. Bruce S. Banner saw that he had become a zombie's partner, and after being successfully solved, his heart was relaxed and complicated at the same time. Then he set his eyes on the queen bee girl he saw for the first time, and after looking at it for a while to make sure that the other party was not lost, he opened his mouth to ask her identity. The queen bee girl ignored Bruce S. Banner asked, and set his eyes on Chen Fu. She squinted slightly. Intuition told the queen bee girl that this guy was strange. After all, the latter showed a surprisingly calm when facing those zombies, and seemed not surprised by what happened at the moment. However, the number of people who have not been infected has been extremely rare so far, and the only enemy is those zombies. No matter what identity the teenager in front of him is, there is nothing to suspect. Let's go, this is not the place to talk. Those zombies will soon rush out after smelling the smell of living people. Let's get out of this place first. Thinking about it, the queen bee girl said to Chen Tian and the two. I guess I'm still not with you. Bruce S. Banner wanted to refuse. After all, the current situation was too weird to determine where the other party came from, and he couldn't figure it out. However, the words did not fall. A figure rushed down in the sky and took him directly. Before Chen Tian looked up, he listened to Bruce Tian. Banner let out a roar of panic. Looking again, it was Spider-Man Peter who took him. Parker. Combat detected, rewarded, Spider-Man. The prompt to copy ability immediately sounded in his head. Advertisement. Meanwhile, Chen Tian felt that his ability to sense the environment and crisis had improved a lot. Let's go. The queen bee girl on the opposite side took out a communicator and pressed it, and then two flying ants were enlarged to the vehicle's file size. She then waved her hand at Chen Tian, signaling him to ride up. Thank you for your kindness, but no thanks. Chen Tian smiled and shook his head. Immediately, the whole person floated from the spot, snorted, and followed little Spider-Man and Dr. Banner, who were swinging in front of him with cobweb. This person is really not simple. In addition to his strong strength, he can actually be able to fly on his own. The queen bee girl stood in place, staring blankly at Chen Tian's back, shocked. Then, I couldn't help but worry in my heart. Just now, the queen bee girl has seen the strength shown by Chen Tian through monitoring, which is outrageously powerful. Now add a flight ability. If Chen Tian accidentally turns into a zombie, it is definitely the greatest danger to them. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope this person doesn't get infected with the virus. The queen bee girl thought, sighed deeply, and in thought, she had already flapped the wasp wings behind her and followed everyone. Several people walked all the way through the high-rise buildings in New York. Soon arrived at the destination. Spider-Man used his own cobwebs to suspend a train in mid-air, a temporary base. In this way, away from the ground, you can avoid zombies. It looks a little like a spider's nest. Chen Tian glanced at the high-rise buildings, which were fixed in the mid-empty train car by the cobweb-like dense cobweb. Muttered a sigh. Then, he followed a few people into it. It's arguably the safest place in New York. Spider-Man Peter Parker takes off his hood and turns Bruce Banner and Chen Wei introduced. Meanwhile, the remaining survivors also appeared in the train car. They are Iron Man's butler Harpy, Sharon Agent, Kurt, Winter Soldier, and Wakanda's Oki. These people can also be regarded as the second echelon among the Avengers. Welcome back. The fleshy Harpy greeted with a smile, but because Iron Man became a mourner. No matter how you look at it, his expression is a little bit of a forced smile. The others also nodded in greeting. Little Spider-Man, after greeting them, he said, "Guys, I brought Dr. Banner back. Peter, now you can tell me how these zombies came about, right?" Bruce on the side Banner finally couldn't help the doubts in his heart and asked. Peter Parker heard this and gave the other party a video. This one he had recorded in advance before this, in case other unsuspecting people return to Earth without knowing what happened. Bruce S. After watching the video, Banner learned. The virus that plunged almost the entire city of New York into a zombie frenzy came from Dr. Pym's lab. At that time, he wanted to use the shrinking technology to try to go to quantum space and save his wife who was lost in it. Unexpectedly, his wife was infected with a virus that would bite people madly in quantum space, that is, zombie disease. Poison. And this virus is very contagious. When she was found by Dr. Pym, she immediately infected her husband, and then gnawed Ant-Man's body clean. Subsequently, Dr. Pym and his wife, shrunk to the size of a mosquito file, easily infected the Avengers, into a loss. Advertisement. Soon. The entire zombie tide has swept through New York City, and it is still spreading constantly. In just 24 hours, the entire Northwest was infected. How could something so outrageous happen? Bruce S. When Banner learned what happened, he opened his mouth wide and was speechless. How come Thanos hasn't come to grab the mind gem, and the Earth has become this ghost because of itself? Then, the expression on his face became more and more frightened. In this case, what can we do next? Can't you just sit back and watch more and more people on the Earth become zombies, right? Peter, when Parker heard this, he took a deep breath. We definitely won't just stay here and wait for death, otherwise, we won't have to go to great lengths to be rescued by you, Mr. Banner. The Queen Bee girl also walked over at this time, her face solemn. Next, we are preparing to go to a base where the antidote to the zombie virus is being developed. There is a man there, who is calling people who have ability in the whole world, and wants to work together to create the 317 antidote and save the world. Bruce S. When Banner heard that there was still this kind of thing, he couldn't help but light up his eyes. After all, when he transformed, he was Hulk, the Hulk with an IQ like a child and conquering everything by violence. In an ordinary state, Banner is a scientific researcher with extraordinary intelligence. Knowing that someone was going to gather a joint effort to study the antidote to the zombie virus, he naturally felt that he had found hope. If I'm not mistaken, the person who sent out the summons should be Vision. Chen Tian, who listened silently on the side, did not speak and laughed softly. Others may not understand. But he was clear. Vision conveners did not come to the past to study any antidote, or rather, not to have that ability. If Chen Tian remembers correctly, everyone in this universe can be said to have turned into zombies in the end, and no one has been spared. And Vision now conjures people to the past, just to feed Wanda, who has been infected with zombies. He could not bear to look at his lover and was tormented by hunger. But Chen Tian didn't tell the truth. After all, he was still very interested in Vision's mind gem and Wanda's origin magic power. Moreover, with his current strength, it is not an easy thing, and there is no need to worry about any accidents. Moreover, now basically all people have become zombies, and there is no need to keep their hands. Then, little Spider-Man noticed Chen Tian, who had been silent. I don't know who this friend is. He showed the kind smile of the big boy next door. My name is Peter Parker, you can also call me Spider-Man. Bruce S. Banner said on the side, his name is Chen, his strength is very strong, and he saved me just now. After that, he looked at Chen Tian. Chen, I don't know if you want to go with us to find the person who studies drunken drugs. Between words, the eyes of the royal bee girl on the side showed an expectant look. After all, Chen Tian's strength, she had seen it with her own eyes. Moreover, this mysterious teenager also has the ability of flight, which can also play a great role in this environment full of zombies on the ground. Meantime, if she can act together, she can also keep an eye on each other at any time in case the teenager is accidentally infected into a zombie. Definitely, what the Queen Bee girl did not expect was that with Chen Tian's current defensive power, Even if she stood and let those zombies bite, she would not be able to pierce his skin at all, let alone infect him. After hearing Little Spider-Man's invitation, Chen Tian asked, "I don't have any problems, how are you going to get there?" "We can go by train." Little Spider-Man immediately replied, "This will avoid the harassment of many zombies and avoid a lot of trouble." After Chen Tian got such an answer, he firmly said, "In this case, you can't pass." As soon as these words came out, time. Everyone present looked at him with doubtful eyes. 108. Chen, although everyone just said that you have strong strength, we have so many people now. Relying on the train is already the best way we can think of. Little Spider-Man Peter. After hearing Chen Tian's words, Parker couldn't help but start refuting, "And now, there are so many people outside, they have turned into zombies. We can't think of a better way to get to our destination." He is a famous talker, and when he comes up, he speaks like a bamboo tube pouring beans, and he can't stop at all. A lot was said in one breath. As for the others, the expressions on their faces also looked ugly. After all, Chen Tian's meaning is that the method they chose is not reliable at all. "Chen, don't say such demoralizing things casually." Dr. Banner sighed and slowly spoke, "After all, in the doomsday environment, it is not easy to be at home. To think of such a way to go is really the best choice among all difficulties." After watching the video Little Spider-Man shot him, he already understood the whole situation in New York. The sensitive and kind-hearted Banner just came here, noticed the surviving people, and the expressions on their faces were not relaxed. "I think it's all because of the sudden outbreak of the zombie tide, and I am depressed." In this situation, everyone has a backlog of stress in their psyche. All the negativity and dissatisfaction may be magnified into the last straw that overwhelms the camel. Thereupon, when Chen Tian said that he was not optimistic about going to his destination by train, Banner noticed the already ugly expressions of the others, and suddenly became even more ugly. That's why he chose to mediate out loud. When Chen Tian heard this, he shook his head with a smile. In fact, knowing the plot, he knows that on the way to the past, a few of the surviving people will have accidents, so he will say so. It's kind of a kind reminder. Definitely, the people who didn't know the situation just thought that Chen Tian was pouring cold water, causing the situation at the scene to become like this. The Wasp Girl squinted and carefully looked at Chen Tian, feeling that this person must not be simple. Moreover, he did not seem eager after rejecting the plan to take the train. "So, Chen, since you think the plan we chose before is not feasible, is there a better path for you?" Thinking about it, she immediately asked. "I do have a better option for the past, and I can make sure there are no surprises in between," Chen Tian said with a smile after hearing the other party's question. Little Spider-Man on the side suddenly became energetic when he heard this. "Chen, since you have a better path, you should have said it earlier. I have said that the current situation is very difficult, and all of us who remain should have one heart. However, by this time, you are still hiding it, and I have to wait for you to ask." Another string of witty words, and at the same time the dissatisfaction in the words overflowed into words. Chen Tian looked at the other party's excited look, and his mouth seemed to not stop at all, and he was a little speechless. This Little Spider-Man can really nag. The other side. "So what are you talking about as a better option? Can it really guarantee a safe arrival for all of us?" After hearing Chen Tian's answer, the Wasp Girl's eyes immediately lit up. This person really has a way. At the same time, I also maintain a certain doubt. What is the way to ensure that there will be no accidents on the road in the past? You know, the zombies outside now can be described as overwhelming. No matter who it is impossible to be sure that it will be able to go on the road without any mistakes. It's simple." Chen Tian looked at the big eyes full of question marks of the Wasp Girl and said with a smile, "It can be said that it is completely easy, and getting everyone to their destination is only a matter of 10 thoughts for me. This statement came out. Harpy and the others, who had been in a bad mood because Chen Tian had ruined the atmosphere before, frowned even more for a while. They didn't know how difficult it would be to pass through a city full of zombies. In a situation like this, it is necessary to take so many people out with you. No matter who says it is easy, it is inevitable that there will be suspicion of exaggeration, let alone in the mouth of an Oriental teenager who looks no more than a teenager. Advertisement. Moreover, what is even worse is that he actually said that this matter is not only simple, but also a matter of thought. Who do you think you are? The gods of creation? Chen. When Dr. Banner heard Chen Tian's words, his face also looked a little tangled. He was grateful to the latter for helping him before, and he also knew that Chen Tian was very strong. But I still feel that the other party's words are a little exaggerated. It seems that although Chen is strong, he is still too young in the end, because of over-submission. Just refuted, so now want to prove yourself. His brother, willing to believe, as a normal person, you should also understand how incredible what you just said is. Little Spider-Man reacted even more violently when he heard this. However, there is no point in blindly refuting you verbally. If you have this ability, it will directly prove to us. The Wasp hears Peter Parker's words were followed by a nod of his head. With a smile in the corner of his eyes, Chen Tian looked at the faces of everyone in front of him. From the expression, it is clear that he does not believe his words. Watch it. He also felt that it was useless to talk more, and it was best to show it directly. This statement came out. The others in the train immediately gave him an empty spot. Chen Tian stood over, slowly raised both hands, clasped his thumb, ring finger, and little finger, one palm did not move forward, and the other hand drew a circle. Next second. Under the gaze of everyone. In the air in front of Chen Tian, golden rays of light suddenly appeared out of thin air. Then, those golden rays formed a circle and slowly expanded. A dimensional gate was constructed by Chen Tian. Definitely, he has a more convenient way, dimensional teleportation. However, even if they all obtained this ability, Chen Tian still wanted to give it a try. This is. When Dr. Banner saw the golden circle, he thought of the teleportation spell used by King Magician before. It's just that the words haven't been spoken. Weo. The golden circle in front of Chen Tian suddenly expanded to 2 meters in diameter, and countless golden points of light sputtered around it. This is teleportation magic. Peter Parker looked inside the golden circle, revealing the fenced camp, and couldn't help but exclaim. This is exactly the destination that was not a short distance away from them. When they planned to take the train before, they were worried that there would be any accidents during the long journey. And now, through the golden circle, the destination is no more than a step away from them. Just step over and you'll be there. As for the others, Harpy, Winter Soldier and others who had questioned Chen Tian before, they immediately closed their mouths after seeing this scene. Feeling hot on the face, I hit a berry. The Wasp girl was also surprised. Although she thought that Chen Tian must have a secret that was not simple, she did not expect that the other party would be able to master such magic. Chen, isn't this the ability used by the magic magician who was with Tony before? Dr. Banner also came to his senses at this time. I have a little ability for magic. Chen Tian looked back and smiled. In fact, he was also a little surprised after successfully using the teleportation dimension magic. After all, most Camartage, except for Sorcerer Supreme, need Sling Ring to help them gather magical energy in order to open the dimensional door. So, just now, Chen Tian was just holding a mentality of giving it a try, and he really couldn't use dimensional teleportation anymore. Advertisement. The result was beyond his expectations. Unexpectedly, even without Sling Ring, it would have been successful in one time. It seems that the magic ability contained in the new bloodline in his body is really not covered. The other side. Spider-Man Peter Parker, looking at Chen Tian, scratched his head a little embarrassed. Chen, I'm sorry, I blamed you just now. You are actually a magician who can cast such powerful magic. Saying that, his eyes flickered to look at the dimensional gate in front of him. This is really incredible. Such a far place, after casting magic, you only need to take one step to reach it. As he spoke, he had already felt the wind blowing out from within the dimensional gate. Little Spider-Man could be sure that it wasn't New York air. If I can I learn magic with you afterwards? I think this thing is really cool. My words are fine in big cities, but as long as you get to an open space, you can't go through cobweb high-speed movement anymore. He looked at Chen Tian with some expectation. Marvel at Chen Tian's magic. There were other people who were also shocked by Chen Tian's performance. Then, let's go first, and the rest will wait until all this is over. We can't afford too much waste in our time now. Chen Tian smiled, and then took the lead through the dimensional gate and walked to the opposite side. He kind of can't wait to get Wanda's origin magic power. There's also the mind gem embedded in visions for it. This gemstone not only has powerful energy, but more importantly, as long as Chen Tian brings mind gem back, it can help the little Wanda, awakening origin magic power at home. He could see that after experiencing such a thing, Wanda, who was small and big, actually longed for strength in his heart. If you can make the other party awakening chaos force, the little girl will be happy, and Chen Tian can copy it, the best of both worlds. Go fast, go fast. Little Spider-Man watched Chen Tian walk towards the dimensional gate, and couldn't help but follow. Seeing this, the others did not dare to slacken, and walked into the dimensional gate one after another. Feeling that with only one step, the whole person has come thousands of miles away, and everyone is amazed. At the same time, looking at Chen Tian's gaze, it was also more complicated. There was surprise, there was admiration, he had curiosity. Who the hell is he, to be able to be so young, but with such strength? However, what everyone doesn't know is, as they pass through the dimensional gate, in the deep space, there is a figure that no one can see, watching everything below. Through the deep space of shattered glass, the man looked down on this reality in such a condescending manner. He is the observer. The strength is beyond imagination, not to mention Chen Tian, even a more powerful existence in the universe. In his eyes, there is no difference from ants. This man. It doesn't seem to be what should be in this universe. The observer's face was indifferent, and his gaze was fixed on Chen Tian. Chen Tian, who uses his mental ability and spider ability, does not respond to this. No way. The observer is already an extremely high-dimensional existence, and it is not at all accessible to Chen Tian now. And on his body, it seems that there is an aura very similar to the incredible person, and all the universes are about to face the birth of a monster. The observer who noticed this seemed to have a calm tone, and finally a little fluctuation appeared. However, this universe has not shown signs of collapse because of his appearance. He then muttered. Definitely. Advertisement. Even if this universe really collapsed because of Chen Tian, observation will not be a shot either. Races of observers appeared at the time of the formation of the universe, so they also possess a technological level hundreds of millions of years ahead of other life in the universe. People of this race believe that their knowledge and power belong to the universe. So they came to a planet to help the evolution and development of a new people there. However, the indigenous races on that planet have accelerated their corruption due to scientific and technological progress. Finally destroyed his own planet. After this incident, the observers decided that they would no longer participate in the events of any living beings in the universe. It will only be witnessed as a bystander, and this is the observer's lifelong commitment. Therefore, Even if Chen Tian's appearance is noticed by observers of this universe, if nothing else, the latter will not make any decisions about him. The observer, as the name suggests, is simply responsible for observing everything. Meanwhile, Chen Tian, along with all those who survived the loss frenzy, had made their way through the dimensional gate to the camp on the other side of the portal. Such an experience. It's incredible. Sharon Agent has long blonde hair and a tight black agent shirt, which outlines her tall and hot body. She looked at Chen Tian and looked back at the slowly closing portal behind her, her eyes full of surprise. Magician. The wasp girl squinted and looked at Chen Tian, feeling more and more that this teenager was incomprehensible. As for the others, they are also amazed. Little Spider-Man jumped up and down with excitement and surrounded Chen Tian, wanting the latter to teach him magic after agreeing. Right at this moment, Banner couldn't help but look at his surroundings. This camp is surrounded by a fence, zhao zhao zhao, and those zombies should not be able to enter. He muttered, "This is also the place where we have developed a cure for all the antidotes." In the midst of emotion, Dr. Banner's gaze kept watching along the surrounding fence. "Damn it! There's a gap in the fence here," he suddenly exclaimed, drawing everyone's attention. "A lot of zombies." Little Spider-Man also instantly became serious, his tone was solemn, and his entire body tensed. However, he found that there were countless zombies standing outside the fence, and even there was a big gap in the fence. But those zombies all stood quietly in place, even if they saw them appear. All the zombies had a lot of saliva coming out of their mouths, but they still didn't move. "What's going on?" Curious little Spider-Man. Could it be Necromancer Chen? Banner relaxed and teased. "You two, be quiet first, this place is too weird." The wasp remained tense. Then, a red figure slowly emerged from a distance. "It's still normal vision, the initiator who convenes the caller, shouldn't it be you?" Banner recognized the other party at a glance. Immediately, he quickly walked up and said hello to the other party. Seeing this, the rest of the people also walked over. "I didn't expect to see so many old friends." Vision also smiled and fell in front of everyone and said hello. Later, he said, "Because I am a robot, these zombies have no desire for me to eat. As for now, the zombies outside the fence have been shocked by my use of the power of Mind Gem." Everyone suddenly realized after listening to it. No wonder those zombies just stood outside. Then, Vision noticed Chen Tian, who was standing behind everyone, and his red brows couldn't help but frown slightly. With Mind Gem as his energy supply, he always felt that this strange oriental teenager was looking at himself. Strong. With some strange desire. 109. This person is very strange, he can't see through the other party's mind. The moment Vision saw Chen Tian, he had such a question in his heart. Looking at the latter, there was a slight doubt in his gaze. "Vision, since you are the one who discovered the antidote to the zombie virus." Then, Winter Soldier came up a little impatiently, "Then tell the old things, let's put it aside, let's go and see what results you have researched now." "Vision, we came here precisely because we learned that there is an antidote to the virus." Little Spider-Man Peter Parker also came up, looking a little eager. Now more and more people are beginning to become zombies. If they can't be dealt with in time, then the consequences are unimaginable. His statement was in keeping with his usual style, which was that of being numerous and dense. As for the others, when they heard that the topic was going on here, there was also an expectant expression under their eyes. In this situation, there is nothing more interesting than an antidote that can solve the zombie crisis. Is the antidote I researched. Vision heard the words of several people on the other side, and then felt their gaze, but for a while he seemed a little hesitant. At the moment, the time is approaching dusk. At the junction of heaven and earth, the brilliance of the sun has begun to gradually dim at this time. The layers of zombies outside the camp fence cast a thick black shadow on the ground, and the sun road extended to everyone's feet. Well, this matter is really important, let's go first. A smile suddenly appeared on Vision's face, and then he took a step and walked towards the buildings in the camp with little Spider-Man and the others. And Chen Tian and many people behind, the eyes have been on Vision's gemstone. However, he is not in a hurry to grab it. After all, it will be up to the other party to lure out the zombie Wanda. Between thoughts, the group had already walked into the entire camp building. As you can see, this is a laboratory, as Vision said, with all kinds of sophisticated instruments and computers. Meanwhile, Bruce S. Banner couldn't help but ask Vision, how did you manage to keep so many zombies outside the camp in place? When Vision heard this, he smiled. Actually, after my research, I found that all zombie mind fluctuations are actually regular. And the mind gem that I have, just happens to be the course to control them, theoretically. That's when Vision's words come to this. Bruce on the side. When Banner heard this, an excited expression immediately appeared. Theoretically, as long as you can amplify this Heart 573 spirit fluctuation and spread it around the world, you can control all the zombies. That's right, I actually think the same as you. Vision echoed Dr. Banner's words, and finally walked to the console and clicked on the screen in front of him. It began to show that he had collected all the research results and data he had collected during this time. As a matter of fact, Dr. Banner and Little Spider-Man are both academic-oriented researchers, and they immediately showed excited expressions and carefully examined the materials that appeared on the screen. The other side. The Wasp Girl listened to the conversation of several people, but her face couldn't help but show a puzzled expression. Then why not do it now, expand the mind fluctuations around the world, and let all the zombies be controlled? She couldn't help but ask. Can't do it? However, after hearing the other party's words, Vision shook his head gently. With the technology that exists on Earth now, it is impossible to do such a thing. But Vision has made other attempts, and that is that he began to try to restore the human being who turned into a zombie through the mind gem. At this moment, a man's voice thought. So did he succeed? Bruce S. When Banner heard this, the expression on his face couldn't help but start to get excited. He didn't notice that this man's voice did not actually belong to anyone present. As for the others, the performance is similar to Banner. After all, Vision said that he could control the heartbeat of zombies through the ability of Mind Gem, which had made them excited enough. Advertisement. Unexpectedly, now it is actually possible to transform those who become zombies back into humans. Huh. Only the Wasp Girl had a surprised look on her face when she heard the man's voice. Did he succeed? And the owner of the man's voice, hearing Banner's question, immediately replied, then you are optimistic about yourself. When everyone doesn't understand what the other person means. The voice continued, oh damn it, I need someone to turn a chair for me. It was at this time that those present discovered that the man's voice actually came from the chair in front of them. Vision sighed and reached out to turn the chair beside him. My experiment of transforming zombies back into humans cannot be said to be a complete failure, at least a part. As he spoke, the chair had been turned around completely. And above, it's Ant-Man Scott Long. Fed, of heads. Hey Janet, when your parents threw themselves at me, I thought I would never see you again. Ant-Man's remaining human head was stored in a semicircular glass jar, and his eyebrows fluttered, but after I was eaten by them, my remaining head was preserved because it became a zombie. Later, Vision restored me back to humanity through his ability, so the situation became what it is now. Saying that, Ant-Man's head looked at those who looked at him, all with a somewhat surprised expression, and then said, I know, I lost a lot of weight, but I'm fine now. Scott. The Wasp Girl stepped up with a trembling voice and picked up Ant-Man's remaining head. I thought I would lose you forever, but I didn't expect that I could have your head again now. Honey, we're at least alive, aren't we? Ant-Man's head said lightly. The reunion of the two of you is touching, but I think we have more important things to discuss now. Then, Okai from Wakanda interrupted the two, and then looked at Vision. You just need the technology to spread the mind fluctuations to the entire Earth, and we in Wakanda can do it. Thanks to the blessing of our protective shield, it is now the last pure land on Earth. After hearing the other party's words, Vision was stunned for a moment. No, you are not the last survivors. Are you saying there are other survivors? When the Winter Soldier on the side heard Vision's words, he immediately narrowed his eyes, and some doubts arose in his heart. Since Vision says there are other survivors, why is it empty except for his and Ant-Man's heads? Moreover, before that, he seemed to be completely unprepared to talk about it. Between thoughts, the expression on Winter Soldier's face became more solemn. Years of military service have made him habitually pay attention to details that are not easily noticed by others. He remembered that when he asked Vision to quickly bring them into the lab, the latter's face showed obvious unnaturalness and confusion. Although that expression, appearing quickly, was immediately converged by Vision. But it was noticed by the Winter Soldier. It's just that at that time, he didn't think deeply about it. Now the Winter Soldier is beginning to sense that something is wrong. Thinking. While everyone else was still talking, Winter Soldier quietly went to the rest of the Vision-built base and began to explore. Finally, it slowly walked in the direction where the warehouse was located. And the other side. Dr. Banner and Spider-Man, who walked up excitedly and began to control the computer to check the data, suddenly changed their faces. Vision, the message you sent doesn't seem to be just our response. The expression on Dr. Banner's face began to become ugly. The number of those who responded to you is almost close to 100. But now in this base, I don't see anyone else. The expression on little Spider-Man's face was also very complicated. Could it be because these people, after responding to Mr. Vision's message, wanted to leave here, but encountered zombies? So in the end, none of the 10 people made it over, right? Alas, the world is still too dangerous now. His tone was full of emotion and embarrassment. Advertisement. Then, Chen Tian walked towards Vision, and he looked at the latter with a smile. How long do you plan to bury the truth? Say it, where is she? You should also know that this situation can no longer be maintained for a long time, right? Hearsay. Bruce S. Banner looked over a little puzzled. Chen, what are you talking about? What is she? Vision says we're not the first survivors. Don't you understand where the other survivors went? Chen Tian smiled back. No matter what, so many people who respond to the message, someone will always come here, right? So now, where have they gone? Little Spider-Man couldn't turn a corner when he heard his words. What are you talking about? It's not that he doesn't have enough IQ, or he doesn't want to think of Vision in a bad direction. But Bruce S. Banner, Wasp, and Oki, as well as the others, all had a change in expression on their faces. I don't know what you're talking about. After hearing Chen Tian's question, Vision did not look up and continued to busy with the work at hand. Where's Wanda? Chen Tian no longer went around the corner this time and spoke directly. The words fell. Wio. Chen Tian's figure suddenly flickered and blurred, and a flash came directly behind Vision, and his hand was clasped on Vision's head. The Wanda strength of this universe has reached the level universe, and the spiritual ability far exceeds that of Chen Tian. So Chen Tian doesn't know exactly where Wanda is. I don't know what you're talking about. Vision felt the force transmitted from his head, and still did not change his face. Little Spider-Man saw this. Immediately held Chen Tian's hand. Mr. Chen, I hope you can calm down. Now there are not many of us surviving. No matter what, we should not fight among ourselves. However, Little Spider-Man immediately found that he could not shake Chen Tian's hand at all. Even if the whole body has exerted strength, but let the latter's body, a little shaking, cannot do it. This was the first time he had experienced such a terrifying gap in strength. Chen Tian, I think Peter has a point, we shouldn't fight casually until things are proven. Bruce S. Banner also began to exhort. Everyone else looked a little anxious. Next second, Vision's body suddenly turned translucent, as if there was no longer an entity, and he easily broke free from Chen Tian's shackles and floated. Rumble. He turned his head again, and the gem on his forehead immediately burst out a brilliant golden ray and bombarded Chen Tian. However, Chen Tian only squinted slightly, and on the side of his body, he easily dodged the opponent's attack. Combat detected, rewarded, body blur, vision. Combat detected, rewarded, vision. With the mind in mind, the prompt of the summer system ability sounded. Chen Tian did not give in, and his eyes suddenly bloomed with a crimson luster. Rumble. Two crimson beams wrapped in terrifying power and temperature suddenly burst out. Extremely fast. Vision didn't have time to dodge at all, and was directly hit by the hot side. However, when the metal on the surface of his body had just been cut off a small layer, his body had already reacted and immediately increased the density of his body. Directly take this blow from Chen Tian. However, under the continuous bombardment of Chen Tian's hot eyes, Vision's body, which had increased its density, gradually began to show some signs of redness and fragmentation. Advertisement. You don't think about it? Vision's tone was calm at all times. However, although the three words he said this time were still calm, Chen Tian heard anger in them. Next second. Rumble. The mind gem on Vision's forehead once again burst out with a brilliant golden laser, which was in contact with Chen Tian's hot vision. Suddenly, the entire base is occupied by the aftermath caused by the confrontation between the two sides, and every corner can feel the strong airflow and the terrifying heat wave. Meanwhile, combat detected, rewarded, self-regulating body density, vision. Chen Tian successfully copied the other party's ability again. He felt that each cell of his body seemed to have its own thoughts, and automatically adjusted the density of his body in the face of environmental changes. While being surprised, he also felt the surprise. I actually copied 3 abilities on Vision. The main thing is that he originally thought that he would not necessarily be able to copy the other party's ability. After all the other party's abilities come from the mind gem on the forehead. I didn't expect to have such a harvest. Chen Tian couldn't help but think with satisfaction. The other side. Vision's ability is not very strong at present, and the power of rays is only at the level of Homelander. Therefore, that golden ray was quickly overwhelmed by the red beam and disintegrated. Rumble. Vision was directly blasted by Chen Tian's hot side, smashing the wall with rubble and splashing, and flying out upside down. Thundered. The entire underground base shook violently because of this collision. However, what is strange is that by the time Vision had risen from the ground and stumbled back to the base, the ground still did not stop. You woke her up. Vision looked at Chen Tian and said. Woke up whom? Banner asked suspiciously. Weo. Then. In the side passage of the base, there was a strange sound. She's coming. Come on. Run. Winter Soldier ran out of the passage with a black man with a broken leg in his arms, pale and panicked. He shouted as he ran, sweating profusely, and his steps became faster and faster, as if there was some extremely terrifying existence behind him. She? Who? When everyone heard his voice, they immediately turned their heads and looked over. T'Challa, why are you here? Okai from Wakanda, when he saw the black man with a broken leg in Winter Soldier's hand, his face became more and more surprised. And at the other side of the moment, the passage behind Winter Soldier glowed with a brilliant and enchanting red light, as if the demons of hell were whispering. Roar. Then a terrifying sound echoed in the huge warehouse, followed by a shaky figure, limping out of the passage. She was dressed in a deep infrared suit, and her body emitted a strange aura, followed by a scarlet light that distorted the surrounding space. When Bruce Banner turned his head to see the figure behind him, his legs suddenly went limp. Because it was a rotten face surrounded by a strange scarlet light, and the deformed face revealed the breath of death. Straight to the heart. That's a zombie version of Wanda. 110. Roar. In the low roar, the atmosphere in the entire base was suddenly full of oppression. Crimson energy streamers spread through the air, and the scarlet light shone brightly, dyeing the entire base with a layer of red. Everything inside turned into hell at the moment. Wanda. She also became lost. Bruce S. Banner looked at the figure at the end of the opposite passage, slowly walking out, and his voice was a little trembling. He had also seen the horror of turning into a zombie before. Those zombies will not lose their abilities, but all their sanity will be overwhelmed by hunger. And Scarlet Witch Wanda's ability is also known to be powerful. Now that she has become a zombie, if she wants to do something to the people present, I am afraid that no one can stop her. Between thoughts, Bruce S. Banner's face grew pale. Everyone be careful. This guy can eat people. And when she is very hungry, she can't think at all. Black Panther T'Challa, in the arms of the Winter Soldier, looked at Bruce T'Challa with an unusually ugly face. Banner and others shouted. The other side. Oki had already eagerly run towards each other when he saw their king of Wakanda appear in front of him with a missing leg. T'Challa. How did you end up like this? There was concern in her tone. Black Panther's brows furrowed when he heard this, and he looked at Vision not far away. When I was surrounded by countless zombies in San Francisco, Vision came and drove away the zombies and brought me back. At the time, I thought I was saved, but I didn't expect that this guy just treated me as a takeaway. As he spoke, his tone became more and more irritated. After Vision brought me back, he tied me up in front of Wanda and used it as her food. I just watched Wanda and gnawed one of my legs clean. At the end of the sentence, Black Panther became more and more agitated, almost cursing angrily. Why would you do something like this? Bruce S. After Banner heard what happened, his eyes showed a thick incomprehension, and he looked back at Vision. You must know that the people you feed to Wanda are all living people. And she has become a zombie who only knows hunger. Vision, which is materialized by artificial intelligence, usually maintains absolute calm, but at the moment it seems a little hesitant. I don't know how I feel and I don't understand the emotions, but I just don't want Wanda to suffer because of hunger. He said slowly. Damn it. Bruce S. Banner didn't expect a robot to have such a situation, cursed secretly, and turned his head to look at the passage. At the moment, the zombie Wanda has reached the entrance of the passage that is very close to everyone. Woohoo! Her eyes, which should have been as beautiful as sapphires, have turned into cloudy yellow eyes. The muscles and skin on the beautiful face have withered, clinging to the face bones, and the tall nose is only a pitch black and terrifying black hole. Her silky hair is dry as grass, and her body is like a skeleton. With a limp, the whole person's head emitted a strange breath. Round after round of scarlet energy waves like a tide spread out uncontrollably on her body, impacting everything around her. Damn it! Everyone present, bearing the huge oppressive force from the other party, all changed their faces and couldn't help but retreat. Woohoo! At this time, the zombie Wanda raised his head and stared at the person opposite with a low roar in his throat, and saliva dripped from his mouth, appearing very hungry for food. Subsequently, she lifted her hand, which had dried up and seemed to have lost all moisture. Weo! Crimson ability blinked and spread forward. Save me! Save me! Kurd, who survived, was lifted up by that scarlet energy. In an instant, he was pulled above the head of the zombie Wanda, and his body floated with it. Roar. Zombie Wanda immediately let out a low roar. The next moment. Click. Advertisement. Two more visible big hands disappeared in the air, like twisting a towel, condensing the survivors on top of the zombie Wanda's head into a twisted shape. The bones of the entire body were shattered, the body was twisted and broken, and a huge amount of blood was dug out of his body. Zombie Wanda raised her head and opened her mouth, gulping down her blood, appearing extremely satisfied. Then. It's all your reason. Vision twisted to look at Chen Tian, his tone was still calm, but his eyes were very gloomy. It's because you woke up Wanda, and now she is hungry and has no reason at all. Saying that, he swept his gaze over everyone present. She will eat all of you. Vision, what are you doing? Just watch the saint like that. Bruce S. At this time, Banner returned to his senses and immediately shouted at Vision, didn't you use a method that could control zombies? There are also zombies that can be restored to humans. Then why don't you take Wanda under control and then restore her? The voice fell. He saw Vision slowly shake his head. No, I can't. Vision said without hurry, Wanda's strength is too strong, I can't control her at all, let alone restore her. So far, the only thing I've managed to restore to human form is Ant-Man's head. After hearing Vision's words, several people present fell into despair. Bruce S. Banner fell silent. After all, if they can't control Wanda, they are now dead. Don't forget. Outside the base, there are still countless zombies around. Although they can't move for the time being, as long as they go a little further, they can encounter normal zombies. In the base, although there is only one zombie, she is Wanda. If he didn't show mercy at all, who would have beaten her there? Can't even mind gem control Wanda. Little Spider-Man also exclaimed at this time, she is too powerful, what should we do with her? She was also panicked in her heart. Catch. Winter Soldier also ran to Oki at this time, and he narrowed his eyes when he heard Vision's words. Directly tucked Black Panther into the other person's arms. Turning around again, he removed the rifle from his back, you can't sit still. He let out a low roar and pulled the trigger hard. Bang bang. The muzzle burst into flames, and he emptied a magazine in one go. Dozens of bullets roared and tilted out. It turns into a dense streamer and shoots towards the zombie Wanda. Roar. Seeing this, the zombie Wanda roared and waved his hand, but he reacted extremely quickly to control a steel plate several meters long and wide on the ground, blocking it in front of him. All the bullets clanged against the steel plate, sputtering out patches of sparks. Whew. Subsequently, she threw her hands again. The steel plate full of bullet holes turned into an afterimage, bringing tearing air sounds, trembling and shooting back towards the Winter Soldier. Damn it! That steel plate is terrifyingly fast. Winter Soldier had no chance to dodge, so he could only watch as the thing came to his chest. Clang. Crisp crashing sound. But it was little Spider-Man who rushed over quickly and kicked the steel plate back. You're right, something has to be done. He turned back to the Winter Soldier and said. Speech gap. The zombie Wanda on the opposite side reacted slowly, was directly hit, stumbled back 2 steps, and then was directly crushed to the ground. Roar. Next second. Zombie Wanda roared and rolled over, erupting with even richer scarlet magical energy. The red light was like a roaring tide, but it directly lifted the steel plate on the body. Advertisement. Good to die or not to die. The steel plate smashed right into the head of Ant-Man, who was placed on the chair. Oh, this is no funny joke. Today's Ant-Man head is housed in a semicircular glass jar, leaving no room to hide. He could only cry out in fear with a pale face. Then, the bell was smashed out by a large steel plate. Scott. Seeing this, the wasp immediately set out to catch Ant-Man. The speed of the steel plate was too fast, and it smashed Ant-Man too far to pick it up. Then, whew! A red cloak actually flew up out of thin air, catching the Ant-Man, who was about to fall at a very fast speed. Then it wrapped the glass jar and slowly flew up. Phew, good risk. Ant-Man looked at the red cloak that held him up and exhaled a long breath. This cloak is Doctor Strange's magical cloak. When Spider-Man went to pick up Dr. Banner, he collected it as a memorial to his deceased friend. I didn't think it worked at this time. It's okay. The Wasp Girl, who was very nervous before, watched this scene and suddenly relaxed a little. The other side. Little Spider-Man looked at the zombie Wanda, who stood up again and narrowed his eyes slightly. Lady Wanda, though, as a man of grace, I shouldn't have done anything to the Queen. But now you want to eat us like a hamburger. With bits and pieces out of his mouth, he burst into the ceiling and swung up. People should respect each other. Since you already disrespect us, then don't blame me. Spider-Man uttered the last words. The whole person seemed to fly, swinging around in midair. Meanwhile, constantly shooting spider webs at Wanda's body. Layer after layer of spider webs soon steamed layer by layer on the zombie Wanda. Roar. The zombie Wanda roared, and immediately controlled one object after another on the ground and smashed towards the Spider-Man in the sky. Meanwhile, Winter Soldier also took out his pistol and pulled the trigger one after another. Bang! 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 Each shot is spaced about a second apart, not to hurt the zombie Wanda, but to distract the other party. Sure enough, zombie Wanda heard the gunshot's hand, and immediately split a hand, controlling the scarlet energy to defend against the bullets that were fired at him. I'll go the other side. Seeing this, Sharon Agent immediately ran to the other side of the zombie Wanda. Learning the movements of the Winter Soldier, he took out the pistol and shot the latter's attention. Roar. Zombie Wanda perceives herself. There were people on both sides at the same time, shooting towards it, and suddenly roared. However, she couldn't let go easily, either. As a result, the zombie Wanda can only separate two hands at the same time at this time to resist bullets from both sides. Well done, friends. Seeing this, little Spider-Man, who was swinging in mid-air, couldn't help but praise, and then he didn't stop moving, and hurriedly seized the opportunity that others created for him. The cobweb in the web shooters on the wrist tilts out in the sun. A large number of cobwebs were ejected, rubbing the air and making rustling, tearing air sounds. Blasted towards the zombie Wanda. Advertisement. Burst. 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 The moment those cobwebs touched the zombie Wanda's body, they directly catapulted away, instantly sticking to all corners of her body. Zombie Wanda was not known for his strength, and he was a little motionless for a while. And after the hands and feet are controlled, the surging scarlet energy in her body could no longer be used as she pleased. Roar. Zombie Wanda suddenly fell into an even thicker anger, roaring and swinging her body wildly, trying to break free. An increasingly turbulent scarlet wave suddenly erupted on his body, madly impacting the cobweb on his body. 0. Good opportunity. Seeing this, Vision suddenly raised his head, and the mind gem on his forehead suddenly shot out a golden laser. Rumble. Directly slammed the ceiling of the base into a collapse, shooting out an opening, and the falling ceiling rubble was piled up, just enough for people to walk up. Let's seize the opportunity to go. Now Wanda is more and more angry and roaring, the stronger the power will come out. He turned to the survivors and said, Wanda is angry now, we all know that the spider web can only temporarily control her. When she breaks free, Wanda's ability will definitely become stronger and harder to deal with. Hear what Vision has to say. Everyone thought it made sense. Let's hurry up and leave, I don't want to stay in this place for a second. Black Panther, who lost a leg, looked at Wanda, who was under control and prepared to leave. They all walked towards the big hole that Vision bombarded. Then, Bruce S. Banner noticed that Chen Tian, who had come over before, was still standing in place, unmoved. "Chen, let's go quickly, we can't continue to waste time here." He couldn't help but persuade worriedly. After all, although Chen Tian was already strong enough in his mind, both in power and magic. But the existence standing across from them at the moment is Scarlet Witch Wanda. Its powerful psychic magic energy is no joke at all. "I admit, you're weird, I can't figure out what you're thinking." Vision also set his sights on Chen Tian, but Banner is right, you better hurry up, no one can stop Wanda now. Strong hunger will make her desperate, falling into extreme emotions of the strong, more powerful than the ordinary strong. Between several conversations. Rumble. Trapped by spider webs, Wanda suddenly burst out into an extremely turbulent energy area. It was like a huge volcano that brewed terrifying energy, accumulated for a long time, and finally erupted at one time. Endless majestic scarlet energy suddenly burst out from her whole body, like a floodgate, easily breaking through the cobwebs on her body. A pillar of scarlet light wrapped in majestic energy rose into the sky. Round after round of terrifying shocks, constantly spreading in all directions, one after another turbulent air currents, tearing the hair and robes of those present. Together with all the equipment in the base, it was blown off. There are even all the stones, which can be easily blown up. B. Wanda, in the center of the scarlet light pillar, had an increasingly hideous expression on her face, and a pair of terrifying eyes flashed dazzling red light. Strands of hair fluttered, and the sharp and threatening teeth of the sun mouth opened and closed slightly. The whole person actually gave people a terrifying oppression, like a messenger of hell, destroying the heavens Mephisto. The threat of death was like substance, turning into a torrential rain and smashing into everyone's chest one after another. Damn it! Dr. Banner felt that his whole body could not control shaking. The same goes for everyone else. Roar. Then, the completely erupted zombie Wanda roared angrily, and the whole person actually directly exploded and slaughtered Chen Tian. The coercion of the sky was like a heavy wave towards the latter, almost devouring it. Seeing this, Chen Tian did not retreat and took a step forward. Battle detected, rewarded, Origin Magic Power Gate.